Islam, Morris. Islam. That's good, boy. 5 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
By day.
His holy prophet.
His holy prophet.
Noble Drew Ali.
Noble Drew Ali.
Islam.
Islam.
Islam, Morris. So, I know. For once. For once. Islam. Prophet warns all governors, ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical, agitating speeches while at work, in their home, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their cardon button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Drew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Drew Ali. Islam. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I am glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claimed that I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works, which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Drew Ali. To the members of the Moor Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your prophet Noble Drew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed, that you will be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on, but the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Drew Ali. And that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see but cannot see, ears to hear but cannot hear, lest they will be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but will sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Peace and love, Moors. We're continuing on with the Back to Basics series. Today we're going to take an excerpt from Islam in the African American Experience by Richard Brent Turner. And they have two parts of this book. Part one is talking about the root sources of Islam being in America, and part two is dealing with prophets of the city and talking about different so-called African American leaders, movements, etc. So interestingly, on page 70, they start with Noble Jew Ali. And the chapter is The Name Means Everything. So we'll go through some of this, and then we're going to go through some of the Moorish literature and the Quran. The name means everything. Noble Jew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America. I, the prophet, was prepared by the great God Allah to warn my people to repent from their sinful ways. They are to claim their own free national name and religion, Noble Jew Ali. The official sources describe Noble Jew Ali as founder of the first Black Islamic sect in America. In truth, he was less than this, for there were Black Muslims here before him. But he was also more than this. He was an American prophet. He would have stepped from the pages of Melville or Ishmael Reed, a thought of Allah clothed in flesh, a fact, a poetic fact. Peter Lamborn Wilson. Booker T. Washington, an ex-slave and conservative Black leader at the turn of the century, wrote that Black people in the South generally agreed upon 2 points when they were freed from slavery: that they must change their names and that they must leave the old plantations for at least a few days or weeks in order that they might really feel sure they were free. Thus, 1913, when Noble Jew Ali, the flamboyant prophet and founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America, said the name means everything, his words surely echoed the sentiment of the ex-slaves. Their children and grandchildren were part of the great migration of 4 to 5 million Blacks from south to north and Midwestern industrial cities in the earliest 20th century. Some of them were Jew Ali's earliest followers. And then when you put the Great Migration and then the whole slavery thing, that's all the people for the slavery myth that they put forth. The Moorish Science Temple of America was the first mass religious movement in the history of Islam in America. And so the first mass Islamic movement in the history of Islam in America, not the history of Black Islam or African American studying Islam or, Sunni Shiite Islam, Islam in general across the board. Noble Jew Ali and the Moorish movement is the establishing of that, as far as bodies of Asiatics being able to have access to Islamic information that they can actually study and then apply it without having any issues when it's time to apply. It focuses on the African American community and embodied all the distinctive characteristics of this new religious tradition. It was urban, anti-Christian, and multicultural, and it developed a distinct missionary and Pan-Africanist political agenda. Noble Drew Ali was an intelligent and creative signifier, a self-styled prophet of the city who utilized eclectic religious, cultural, and political motifs to construct a new Black American culture and political identity that involved changes in name, nationality, religion, diet, and dress. His initial inspiration came from Islam as a global religious, political, and cultural phenomenon. Although he did not have Indian sponsors for his movement as Muhammad Alexander Russell Webb did, he was familiar with Indian philosophy and central Quranic concepts such as justice, a purposeful creation of mankind, freedom of will, and humankind as the generator of personal action, both good and bad. Thus, the Indian subcontinent continued to be a source of information and inspiration for American Islam, as Drew Ali developed the tradition of the jihad of words by utilizing the written word to strive in the path of Allah. He also appropriated ideas and symbols about Islam from the Black Masonic movement to which he belonged. His Pan-African political inspiration and rhetoric came from Marcus Garvey's Universal Negro Improvement Association, which began and declined in Black America almost contemporaneously with the establishment and decline of the Moorish Science Temple. Marcus Garvey's movement and the Great Migration were two of the major social facts of Black America during the interwar period, both of which had a profound impact on the political thought, worldview, and demographics of modern Islam. And then we could go to the Quran. End of time and fulfilling of the prophecies, just to correlate the idea of Marcus Garvey being mentioned in there, and why it's always, whenever you read these, whenever you read literature with regard to Noble Drew Ali, they're always going to make reference to Marcus Garvey and Deuce Muhammad Ali when they're talking about Noble Drew Ali. End of time and fulfilling of the prophecies. The last prophet in these days is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared divinely in due time by Allah to redeem men from their sinful ways and to warn them of the great wrath which is sure to come upon the earth. John the Baptist was the forerunner of Jesus in those days, to warn and stir up the nation and prepare them to receive the divine creed which was to be taught by Jesus. In these modern days, there came a forerunner that was divinely prepared by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did taught and warned the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam, that his name is Noble Drew Ali, who was prepared and sent to this earth by Allah to teach the old-time religion and the everlasting gospel to the sons of men, that every nation shall and must worship under their own vine and fig tree, and return to their own and be one with their Father God Allah. The Moorish Holy Temple of Science is a lawfully chartered and incorporated organization. Any subordinate temple that desires to receive a charter, the Prophet has them to issue to every state throughout the United States, etc., that the world may hear and know the truth, that among the descendants of Africa there is still much wisdom to be learned in these days, for the redemption of the sons of men, under love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. We, as a clean and pure nation, descended from the inhabitants of Africa, do not desire to amalgamate or marry into the families of the pale-skinned nations of Europe, neither serve the gods of their religion, because our forefathers are the true and divine founders of the first religious creed of the redemption and salvation of mankind on earth. Therefore, we are returning the church and Christianity back to the European nations as it was prepared by their forefathers for their earthly salvation, while we, the Moorish Americans, are returning to Islam, which was founded by our forefathers for our earthly and divine salvation. The covenant of the great God Allah, honor thy father and thy mother, that thy days may be longer upon the earthland, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee. Come all ye Asiatics of America, and hear the truth about your nationality and your birthrights, because you are not Negroes. Learn of your forefathers' ancient and divine creed, that you would learn to love instead of hate. We are trying to uplift fallen humanity. Come and link yourself with the families of nations. We honor all true and divine prophets. So with Noble Drew Ali presenting the Quran and then giving us the relationship with him, the relationship with Marcus Garvey, the relationship with the descendants, or us being the descendants of the inhabitants of Africa. All this is part of what people without being involved are going to be able to just pick out from the literature, being that Quran, Moorish literature, 101 questionnaires, all these things are public stuff. If the Library of Congress has it, it's public, right? Yeah. If the Library of Congress has it, it's public. So being connected to Marcus Garvey, and then him making the reference of the Bible, Jesus, John the Baptist, the Canaanites, the Moabites, making all these biblical references, it's going to be interpreted that this is something religious. But then, like you're talking about with the Euphrates and that drying out, that's in the Bible. And they're not going to make that, they're not going to say that that's religious. They're going to say some global warming or something like that is why the stuff's drying up. When told in the Bible, Euphrates is going to dry up. And that's in Revelations too, which again is letting you know that we're in the end times right now. More reason for a prophet to be here. More reason for a prophet to present what's being presented, so that these more reason for the prophet to be presenting what he's presenting, because we're actually living in those times right now of revelations. You got something?
Yeah, not just I think also in the Quran.
Yeah.
Well. So it's like two different prophecies mentioned, two holy books or scriptures. And you have our prophet says, when the fire starts, I'll be the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as long as pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Brother Ray, you mentioned that there's a lot of flooding going on in the world, but it's not mentioned on the news, which is very interesting.
Yeah.
I want to add on to that. So I was looking in the oral statements.
Yeah.
And I was noticing so one of the oral statements, I forget the number, I think it was around the 30s, but it says, the prophet said Atlantis will rise again.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, with the Euphrates drying out, things being revealed. In China, they have like statues being revealed.
Mm-hmm.
They have in the Mississippi River, they have this big mound that they can walk to now.
Yeah.
Now they couldn't do this for 70 some odd years. Now they can do it. So yeah,
So you're living the prophecy.
the prophet said, "Don't worry, they can get behind them, they do the water."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fine. So,
Yeah.
I dreamt it maybe 15 years ago
Yeah.
of all of the city in flames, and we traveled east,
Mm.
and it was like Toronto.
Yeah.
The CN Tower, every building around, up until the water's edge was in flames.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Martin Marty's The Noise of Conflict, 1919 to 1941, focused on the word America as central to an understanding of the political and cultural identity of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Noble Drew Ali was an important voice in the conflict between peoples and among people about the shape of American religion in the interwar period. He described the noise of conflict which concerned public, religious, and political power and influence in the United States. At stake were the shape and destiny of America, the role of various religions and peoples in the nation, and the part faith should play in personal destinies. In this context, as Jewish, Catholic, European, and Asian immigrants came to America in unprecedented numbers, and as millions of Black people moved into the cities, establishing scores of new religious and political movements, Anglo-Saxon Protestants, who considered themselves 100% Americans, fought to maintain a racially homogeneous Christian America. Meanwhile, other Americans struggled to force their country to come to terms with its racial, cultural, political, and religious pluralism. Marty contends that because of its small numbers, Islam was not in the position to have public impact in this conflict. But as we shall see, Noble Drew Ali, Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, W.D. Fard, Elijah Muhammad, and other Muslim leaders were all struggling to extend the political and cultural boundaries of white Protestant Christian America to include American Islam. Thus, conflict between whites and Blacks was a central issue in this war over religious and political hegemony in the cities of the United States. Right, so again, remember, the Moorish Science Temple of America was the first mass religious movement in the United States history of Islam in America. So when they start talking about W.D. Fard, Mufti Sadiq, Ahmadiyya movement, UNIA, different Muslim groups, the Masonic groups, whatever, all these different groups that they talk about, in doing your research on them, you'll see that all of them have aspects of Islam incorporated into their teachings, right? Which again goes back to this idea of the importance of Noble Drew Ali, and the brilliance of him using Islam and not using Judaism or some other religion, right? And then the going back to the oral statements with the statement of every knee bowing to Islam. Eventually, everybody's gonna come home to Islam. Whether it's Sunni, Shiite, Sufi, Moorish Science, Freemasonry, whatever it is, everything's gonna be revolving around this idea that Allah is the God of the universe, and whether they go into the mosque to go pray, or whether they're reading Quran with the K or Quran with the Q or whatever, it doesn't matter. Everything's moving back to I Saw Flower Master, right? People wanting to govern themselves, people wanting to know the truth, and trying to stay as close to that truth as possible, with all the different brands that came after Noble Drew Ali, as far as the organizations to belong to, the groups or whatever like that. This is how you have all these different brands of religion, different brands of diet, different brands of dress code, different brands of everything is stemming from what he founded, and then where it went after he transitioned, and who had the power, just like you're saying, just like they were saying. The idea was that Islam wasn't gonna have public impact, because look how small the numbers are in Islam amongst the quote unquote Blacks. But then when you go check the convention minutes and stuff like that, you talk about millions of people were part of the Moorish movement. So if they had that many in the Moorish movement, if it was full to that point, then obviously this thing had an impact in the public, and people were gravitating to this more than the perceived idea. More, right? More than the perceived idea of what this is really about. I mean, the foundation of it is dealing with that's our true religion, our true way of life, the true things that we should be connected to is dealing with nature's law, dealing with universal law. And when you go check all the different schools of thought, all the different religions, all of them go back to universal law, natural law. Some way, somehow, all that's incorporated in it. Okay. Any comments, questions? Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
It's right behind you too. It says Islam. Islam isn't the first religious creed.
Yep.
So it's like truth and falsehood, strangely mixed in one. There's many the Christians who say no, not Islam, but remember, Christianity came out of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like truth and falsehood, strangely mixed.
Yeah.
And all we have is perpetual, but now it's on each and every individual to take themselves out of that mental.
My favorite thing to do is explain Islamism to a Christian
Mm-hmm.
from the way where they come into it, understanding the concept before they hear what it's called. And I end with Islam, and they're like,
Yeah.
whoa,
Mm-hmm.
earth shattering.
Yeah. Page 78. The widespread emphasis on nationalism in Black urban communities was stimulated in part by World War I, which had brought a heightened political consciousness to Black people throughout the world. As the leaders of Western European civilization wasted human lives and destroyed nations, Blacks in Africa, the Caribbean, and North America began to question the legitimacy of colonial rulers who could not maintain peace with one another. Furthermore, over 1 million Blacks from Africa, the Caribbean, and the United States fought for democracy in Africa, in Near East and Europe. When they came home, they were ready to demand democracy for themselves. These people were the new Negroes, militant young race leaders who were ready to obtain their human rights by means of Pan-Africanism or socialism. The fact that the popularity of the new American Islam in Black urban communities coincided with the appearance of the new Negro was not accidental, for the spirit of the new Negro movement helped to ignite mass movements like the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Universal Negro Improvement Association in their cities, with an emphasis on the redefinition of cultural and political identities. Black nationalism in the 19th century had been primarily an elitist affair in which educated Black leaders who revered European ideas saw the liberation of the African race in the civilization of the masses according to the standards of white institutions. Although, as we shall see, civilizationist ideas did not disappear completely from Black nationalist ideologies during the World War I era. There was a new ambivalence toward the mode of thought in Black urban settings, and this ambivalence was a result of the new Negro movement. The most popular cultural outcome of the new Negro movement was the Harlem Renaissance, in which Langston Hughes and other creative writers abandoned the old civilizationist and assimilationist modes for the urban masses and began to romanticize the creative spirit of lower-class Blacks in the cities. At the same time, the new Negro linked cultural creativity in the arts, social science, the political life to the self-determination and significance of the masses. The old Negro had long become more of a myth than a man. His shadow, so to speak, has been more real to him than his personality. Through having had to appeal from the unjust stereotypes of his oppressors and traducers to those of his liberators, friends, and benefactors, he has had to subscribe to the traditional position from which his case has been viewed. Little true social and self-understanding has or could come from such a situation. The Negro of today must be seen through other than the dusty spectacles of past controversy. The day of aunties, uncles, and mammies is equally gone. Uncle Tom and Sambo have passed on. The popular melodrama has about played itself out, and it's time to scrap the fictions. In the very process of being transplanted, the Negro is being transformed. So again, the leading up to Noble Drew Ali and his mission amongst the Asiatics, the quote unquote Negro is already in a place of trying to evolve. They're already fed up with the Uncle Tom, the Sambo, the Mammy, the slave, whatever, and they're looking for something new. So when you get to things like the Harlem Renaissance, and then the only other time that you're talking about Renaissance is when the Moors were ruling Europe, you already know that these people were on it some spiritual, some divine way, that they were connecting themselves to the Renaissance, the reawakening of the knowledge and the information, and people getting out of the dumb state into having some type of out of slavery competence, right? The fact that it was called the Harlem Renaissance, and then everybody rushes to that as a pivotal point in the history of Asiatics, but nobody makes relation to the Renaissance and the Renaissance. It lets you know that they're not fully out of the sleep yet, right? Because if you know enough to call Harlem a Renaissance, then you should know about the Moorish Renaissance, right? The extraordinary power of Garvey's movement originated from his unification of the two aspects of Black nationalism, the political concept of the nation, state, and cultural concept of Pan-Africanism, into one international movement for Black self-determination, which emphasized the theme of signification and identity, right? And then we already know that if they're talking about self-determination and the theme of identity, that Marcus Garvey was off by calling this thing Negro. There was something missing there, because again, his teacher was Deuce Muhammad Ali, who was a Sudanese Moor, fezzes up all the time. So how is he a student of Deuce Muhammad Ali, but then calling his organization Negro, right? And again, that's relative to why El-Hajj kept calling himself Malcolm X, because the people aren't ready to be talking about El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz or whatever. They're not in the mindset to be talking about his free name, because they're still in the Negro mindset. So the same thing with Garvey and the UNIA. This is why it's the improvement of the Negro. So by the time you go through the ranks of that, you're coming out with not with a Negro mindset, right? The organization wasn't for Negroes. It was to improve the Negro, going back again to this thing with the Renaissance and the changing of the guard, if you will, right? Although his alternative programs were not always successful, Garvey's rhetoric and public image inspired and attracted Muslim leaders who had the same goals. Noble Drew Ali, Mufti Muhammad Sadiq, and Elijah Muhammad were all politically connected to Garveyism in different ways and mentioned Garvey frequently in their speeches and writings. At the same time, Garvey appropriated ideas from Black Muslim leaders in Europe and the United States. These connections were part of a global pan-Islamic movement that brought together Pan-Africanists from Asia, Africa, and the United States, Europe, and the West Indies as they creatively formulated Black cultural and political identities around the issue of self-determination. And then we go to somebody said it in the chat, and we go to the UN declarations, and then them talking about the indigenous people have right to self-determination and all that. So if all these so-called Black groups was pushing the idea of self-determination, then they probably were indigenous people. More than likely, they weren't Africans and all that stuff in the context that it's presented. Because once you start talking about self-determination, only indigenous people could exercise that. That can't be exercised by foreigners. That can't be exercised by slaves or anything like that. It has to be Aboriginal and indigenous people who are moving toward the idea of determining for themselves what it is that the people want. And once the people accept that realization of what it is that is being presented, then they should be going with those documents as the foundation. So, for example, the UNIA had the Universal Declaration of Rights for Negroes or whatever, right? They should have just went to the UN declarations and went from there. But then when you look at the time frame and you see, for example, Noble Drew Ali bringing up Marcus Garvey as being the forerunner to the Moorish movement, then you check all of Marcus Garvey's stuff and he's talking about nation, this, nation, that, nationhood, nation. But there's no mention of nationality, right? There's just the concept or the idea that we are a nation. Our people are national people. The unity of our people. We must be a nation. We have to recognize our national this and that. But without nationality being mentioned, it's not really going to take hold the way it's supposed to, which is, again, why Noble Drew Ali is important, because he's the one that brought the idea that we actually have a nationality. This is what it is, proclaim it, right? Not just that we're a nation. And then we don't know we're a nation, but we're Black Asiatics and we're Black Islamic, whatever. We're Negroes, we're Maroons, we're whatever. They're making up all this stuff to be a nation when the individual who presented what the nationality is, they put him over there, they hide him, they don't bring him up. A majority of Noble Drew Ali's teachings are just left in this religious realm, as if that's the only thing he presented or what he brought. You had something?
I was going to say, yesterday I was the screen went, so I went to pick up my phone and I was doing with the understanding that I was just letting know. So the set of young teenagers walking, they're sitting there waiting. I don't know why they didn't come up to talk to the guy, because I'm done doing what I'm doing, right? So the guy decides to call them up at this point, the owner, they come here, so she's walking up, So the girl goes, do you take status card? And so she goes, so the guy goes, yeah. So I'm telling him about my nationality prior to them coming, right? I'm telling him that the Moors and the indigenous land. So then she comes in and says that she has a status card. She's First Nation. So I'm like, in my head, I'm like, First Nation. So like exactly what you're just saying about the whole nation.
What nation is that?
I'm like, what nation? Like, because there's two of them, but only the one had the status card, right? But she was like paler than pale, like tell you that, like she was paler than pale and definitely not indigenous. You know what I'm saying? So I was just like, what nation? She's like, she just started making up like switched words. She said Micmac. Right?
Yeah.
At first, she had to like rethink what she was saying. She's like, "I'm First Nation." I'm like, well, what nation? But even still, Micmacs, like know what I'm saying?
Mountain.
But yeah, honesty and duality, because
Yeah.
like you said, you could put the nation with ality. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you gotta have the ality with it.
Otherwise it's just.
The ality, because
Just
remember,
nation,
Al,
yeah.
Al is dealing with land, and you
Yeah.
go AL, that's usually land.
Mhm.
And so Islam honors, supreme honors and duality.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Translation.
Mhm. The appropriation of Islamic reference by Garveyism was articulated in the rhetoric of the UNIA. First, the religion became part of the language of the UNIA, as some Black publications during this period couched the need for Black leadership in Islamic terms. A March 1917 editorial in Champion magazine affirmed, "The Negro is crying for a Muhammad to come forth and give him the Quran of economic and intellectual warfare. Where is he?" Meanwhile, the journalists for the Negro World compared Garvey to the Prophet Muhammad. The Prophet of Allah, concentrating his inexhaustible, incandescent energy on the spiritual, material liberation of his people and the herald of the new dawn, Garvey stressing with equal zeal and material spiritual redemption of his race. Another writer called Garvey a child of Allah, and Garvey himself evidently agreed, comparing himself to the Prophet Muhammad in one of his speeches. Muhammad suffered many defeats at certain times, he said, but Muhammad stuck to his faith and ultimately triumphed, and Mohammedanism was given to the world. And as Muhammad did in the religious world, so in the political arena, we have had men who have paid the price for leading the people toward the great light of liberty. Arnold Josiah Ford, the musical director of the UNIA, utilized the symbols of Islam in several of his musical compositions for the organization. Allahu Akbar was the title of one of his hymns. Other pieces made similar references. May He our rights proclaim, in the most sacred name Allah, one God, one aim, one destiny, Father of all creation, Allah omnipotent, supreme over every nation. God bless our president. From murderous Cain, whose vengeful mood, a doctrine cursed, preferred, to spill or drink his brother's blood, then love is in Allah's word. So they always make the reference to Marcus Garvey, one God, one aim, one destiny. But they never talk about the pre-line to that in the most sacred name, Allah. They wouldn't go there, right? Because then if you tie Marcus Garvey to Islamic, now you have all these Garveyites looking crazy because they don't talk about Bibles and stuff like that, right? When the foundation of the UNIA is Islamic. It wasn't Christian. Garvey might have been Christian. His parents might have been Christian. But by the time UNIA came around, that was strictly Islamic. And again, this is because this is where it was going in the 20s. If you're Asiatic and dark-skinned, you're either going toward Judaism or you're going toward Islam, because you know that Christianity is the stuff that enslaved you. And they were getting out of that mindset, right? As a leader of the Black Jewish movement in the 1920s, Ford was particularly sensitive to the issue of signification and alternative religious identities in the UNIA. At the same point, he had studied Hebrew with a Jewish immigrant teacher and acquired some knowledge of Talmudic Judaism. By 1924, Arnold Ford was the rabbi of the Black Jewish congregation in Beth B'nai Abraham in Harlem. The Negro World's coverage of Islamic and international affairs led to its further incorporation into the rhetoric of Garveyism. Appointed to the staff of the Negro World in March 1921, Deuce Muhammad Ali offered the readers of the paper a preview of the style of news coverage that would follow the 1920s, with an emphasis on global politics, signification, and identity. India, Asia, and Africa, the strongholds of the darker races, are in the throes of a violent proletarian revolt. Nationalism in India, despite Mr. Gandhi's arrest, is proceeding. On top of this, the Muslims in Turkey are adding coals to the smoldering flames of Mohammedanism. Black workers in the gold fields of Johannesburg are defying the government and insisting on the rights of working men. All over the world, the awakening of the darker races is the sore spot for international intrigue. For the benefit of the leaders and the whole Black world in general, the Negro world takes pleasure in announcing that beginning with this number, His Excellency Deuce Muhammad Ali Effendi, the famous Egyptian journalist, will conduct on this page a department to foreign affairs. In September 1921, thousands of Spanish soldiers were killed and captured by Moroccan Muslims in the rebellion that began when a Spanish general kicked and punched a Moroccan sheikh, Abd el-Krim. This victory of the Third World people over a European power was such an inspiration to Pan-Africans and anti-imperialists of the UNIA that they began to speculate in the Negro world about the role of Islam in redeeming of Africa. When the stirring events in India and elsewhere, Mohammedanism, dormant for centuries, is suddenly seizing the center of the stage in world politics. Britain faces serious trouble with Mohammedans in Egypt, and the Spaniards have met disaster in a fresh uprising in Morocco. All these things are part of the great pan-Islamic movement intended to restore Mohammedan power. Eventually, this rhetoric began to echo Edward W. Blyden's ideas about the appropriate religious identity of Blacks, and one Garveyite after another debated in the pages of the Negro world the virtues of Christianity or Islam as the best religion for people of African descent. In September 1923, John Edward Bruce, a prominent Garveyite and columnist for the Negro World, delivered to the Boston Division a speech entitled Islam and the Redemption of Africa. This address denounced the racism of white Christian missionaries in Africa and suggested Islam as a preferable religion for Africans because of its practice of brotherhood and lack of racism. Bruce went on to suggest that future missionary work in Africa should be the exclusive responsibility of those African Americans who think Black and have been corrupted by European culture. The issue of the role of European culture in the construction of Black political, ethnic, and religious identities in Garvey's time was also a central question for Noble Drew Ali. His Moorish Science Temple of America, which reached its height during the heyday of the UNIA, owed some of its success to Pan-Africanist rhetoric of Garveyism. The Noble Prophet Drew Ali and the Moorish Science Temple of America, Asiatic identity. In these modern days, there came a forerunner who was divinely prepared by the great God Allah, and his name is Marcus Garvey, who did teach and warn the nations of the earth to prepare to meet the coming prophet, who was to bring the true and divine creed of Islam, and his name is Noble Drew Ali. These words from Noble Drew Ali's Holy Quran indicate the importance of Marcus Garvey in the symbolism of Drew Ali's movement. Noble Drew Ali, the first self-styled prophet of modern American Islam, appropriated ideas and symbols not only from Garveyism, but also from the global religion of Islam, Freemasonry, Theosophy, and 19th century Pan-Africanism. And although he lacked a formal education, he was a clever signifier who constructed an Asiatic racial separatist identity for his followers. Diverse legends have developed around his identity and activities before 1913. Some of his first followers claimed that he was a child of ex-slaves raised among the Cherokee Indians. Another hypothesis claimed that he was a descendant of Bilali Muhammad, a famous African Muslim slave who inhabited Sapelo Island in the 19th century. He spent his early childhood as an orphan, wandering with a gypsy group until he was spotted at the age of 16 by a gypsy woman who took him to Egypt, where he studied in the Essene schools. When he was a young man, about 16 years old, he returned to America, where he became a merchant seaman based in Newark, New Jersey. Another legend claimed that Ali went back to Egypt in the early 20th century and met the last priests of an ancient cult of high magic. He proved that he was a prophet by finding his way out of the pyramids. He was also thought to have traveled to Morocco and Saudi Arabia, where he obtained a charter from the sheikhs to teach Islam in America and received the name Ali from Sultan Abdul ibn Said in Mecca. In 1910, he returned to the United States, where he worked as a train expressman and joined the Prince Hall Masons. The final legend concerning his early years was that Noble Drew Ali went to Washington, D.C. in 1912 to ask President Woodrow Wilson for the authority to teach his people Islam, the religion of their ancient forefathers. He also asked that the nationality Moorish American and the names Ali, Bey, and El and the flag of Morocco, which were taken away from his people in the colonial era, be given back. Perhaps closer to the truth than these legends is the Associated Negroes press report that he, Ali, was accompanying a Hindu fakir in circus shows when he decided to start a little order of his own. Here we can discern Noble Drew Ali's ideological connections to the global Pan-Africanist and Pan-Islamic movements in the early 20th century. In the style of Deuce Muhammad Ali, Noble Drew Ali formulated a version of Pan-Africanism that expanded the original geographic references of the ideology to include and unite people of color in Africa, Asia, and America. Noble Drew Ali's Pan-Africanism was also a form of Pan-Islamic thought in its attempt to unite the descendants of the Asiatic nations under the banner of Islam. The emphasis on civilization in his Quran and other texts link him to the civilizationist agenda of the 19th century Pan-Africanists, such as Edward Wilmot Blyden. At the same time, the concept of jihad, though not spelled out explicitly in Moorish Science Temple, was central to Noble Drew Ali's efforts to signify Black people in his movement, as his basic message was a struggle for the truth in the context of his opposition to the cultural and racial imperialism of white Christianity. Sufism was possibly another Eastern religious influence for Noble Drew Ali. In 1910, Hazrat Inazat Khan, an Indian musician and Sufi, came to the United States teaching a form of Sufism and emphasized mysticism, the unity of the world's major religions, and the unifying power of love. These esoteric ideas were also evident in Drew Ali's movement, which emphasized love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice as a path to Islam, and synthesized ideas from several religions and cultural traditions, creating a new religious identity for his followers. The perhaps Noble Drew Ali's Circle 7 Quran and his esoteric ideas were partly inspired by the teachings of the Ismailis, or Seveners, who have practiced all cosmic and historical developments in the number 7, and argue that one must look beyond the manifestations of express words and seek the inner meaning of the verses. These links between Islam are rooted in global Islam. Idris Shah has noted that Freemasonry originated in the context of Sufism, the mystical teachings of Islam, and the Muslim architects from Africa brought Freemasonry from the Iberian Peninsula in the 9th century. Thereafter, Freemasonry spread to England and Scotland, where its original roots were obscured by its European Christian practitioners. Right? So when we're doing these book studies or whatever on African, Asiatic culture or whatever, and then they have sections in there about Noble Drew Ali, and they keep making reference to Prince Hall, Masonry, and he copied Masons and whatever like that. Know that ain't some European thing. The idea is that European is some Christian whatever school of thought for Europeans, and there's no reference of people pre them having Freemasonry too, and practicing it and exercising certain things relative to it. And then even when you go back to all the pyramid builders, that's Freemasonry. So when Masonry is brought up and the mind of the reader just goes to these guys in the lodge, and then they have the fezzes with the stuff on it and whatever like that, you know that that's a distorted perspective. You know that that's European psychology, thinking like that. No different than they say American, and everybody has European in their mind, as if they're the Americans, right? So the mental infiltration, the bought or the learned perspectives, lessons that we have relative to certain subject matter is why we have to study. Because only through going through all these different sources are you going to be able to find what the real origin is. Even when they say Islam, and then people's mindset goes to Saudi Arabia and Mecca and all that stuff. And then you talk to Dr. Ben, he's saying that stuff's ancient. That was in ancient Egypt and all that. Islam's not some pale Arabs brought to the world. Islam is pre them.
What's interesting is that they even say that. They say that Abraham is a prophet of Allah.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you that.
Yep.
Islam's ancient.
Yep.
Good question. Why do they go back to that day? Like, oh, it started in Saudi Arabia.
Mm-hmm. And then we had other teachers that Brother Asher Kwesi, who say, well, hey, if there's the Middle East, then where's the Middle West? Or where's the Middle North? Or where's the Middle South? And then what's their religion? If these people are the founders of Islam and they're in the Middle East and that's a fiction, then probably what they're claiming is a fiction too, right? Because there has to be all the other aspects, all the other directions has to be there too if there's a Middle East, right?
They also have a very distorted way of
Mhm.
that religion.
Yeah.
That way of life.
Yeah.
Very distorted way.
Mm-hmm. And it's similar to with the Moorish movement, after Muhammad, now you have all these different aspects of Islam, but then nobody's making reference to Muhammad being Sufi, and Islam really being an esoteric school of thought, a mystical school of thought, not really go pray and all that. I mean, if you are doing that, it's for metaphysical, esoteric, mystic purposes. It's not so you can, find your way into the abode of Allah when you get out of here or whatever. You know what I mean? It's all for you to sort out your stuff while you're on the earth plane. It's not for some after earth plane thing. You're going to do the religious stuff, and then after earth plane, that's when the stuff kicks in. It better be kicking in right here if you're using it right now. right? And the only way that that happens is if it's being done from an esoteric perspective. It can't be done with some religious idea. Same thing with Moors, that we can't look at Noble Drew Ali and then this is religious. This has to be national in its exercising. You know what I mean? It has to be looked at as something for the liberating of the mind, not just the spiritual idea or whatever. Right? There's many different parts to what it is that's being presented. Another reference that they make with regard to the Masonic thing is they look at the dress of the Moors and say, oh yeah, well look at Noble Drew Ali, he's dressed like Mason's dress. But no, Mason's dressed like he's dressed. Right? You know, it's not the student isn't the founder. The people who are later aren't the original, right? They just came with it. Oh, just for people in the chat, the book is Islam in the African American Experience. Drew Ali's inquiries into the origins of Western civilization and his construction of genealogy and new identity were not new processes in the history of political ideas. Judith N. Schlar has noted that politically disaffected individuals from Hesiod in antiquity, peace more, to Rousseau and Nietzsche in modern times have used myths of creation and genealogy to express their utter contempt for society. All of these writers utilize the political device of subversive genealogy, the search for the origins of a particular people or an institution to question and possibly threaten the foundation of the established order of society. Ultimately, Drew Ali attempted to invert the religious values of American culture by presenting Christianity as inferior European religion, which had been surpassed by Islam, the true religion of African Americans. Noble Drew Ali chose to connect his movement to Morocco, connecting it to the first African Muslim slaves in America, Abdul Rahman Ibrahima, the extraordinary Moorish prince from Fouta Jalan, whose story was told in chapter 1, had used a pretended connection to Morocco to gain his freedom. If this strategy for liberation worked in the 19th century, Drew Ali probably reasoned that it might also work for Black people in the 20th century. Right? And then that's going back to, again, to the sundry free Moors and all these so-called Asiatics who were in slavery, finding their way out of slavery by claiming that they're not Negro, they're tied to the Sultan of Morocco. And again, if they're making that reference point, then they would have to know that there's the treaty between the United States and Morocco. If you have we talked about Korla Pandit, this Asiatic that escaped slavery by just putting a turban on. I just put on a turban, and then all of a sudden people are looking at him like he's some Easterner or something like that, and literally walked off the plantation. Oh, it was an error. I wasn't supposed to be brought here. I'm not Negro. Oh, all right. Well, yeah, you don't really look Negro. You got a turban on and all that stuff. So I guess what you're saying is legit, right? And again, going back to the sundry free Moors and others who realized that once you even with Harriet Tubman and all of them, the idea of getting out of slavery was just not being a slave, right? What's a slave? Well, a slave looks this way. Okay, well, don't look that way. You get out of slavery. Well, a slave wears this. Well, don't wear that, and then you get out of slavery. Well, a slave talk like this. Well, don't talk like that, and then you get out of slavery. They made there were some references too in 12 Years a Slave. They made some references to that as well, of the free people distinguished from, or the free people that got enslaved distinguished from the people who didn't listen to and took the choice of being a slave, when you could pick whether you want to be a slave or not. You know, it wasn't some, you know, like they're saying with the great migration, right? All these people that were migrating from the south to the north, and the millions of them that were doing this exodus, right? Majority of them were people that were from the indigenous tribes, that by the time they got to whatever the destination, now they're black. But prior to that, they were people from the Indian tribes, right? Moorish American signified an ethnicization or deconstruction of race. This shift from the racial category black to the ethnic category Moorish American was not only a psychic escape from racism, but also a shrewd, if unrealistic, political move. When black leaders concentrate on ethnicity and construct new ethnic names for their race, they throw water on the coals of racial discourse, thereby making themselves and their constituencies more acceptable to the white American mainstream. Thus, by distancing themselves from their culture, these leaders hope to receive preferential treatment from white mainstream America. Ultimately, however, this strategy may retard black political progress, since everyone is ethnic, and only black Americans depend on the category of race for the cultural and political identity and survival. Right? So only the blacks do this. Everybody else, they have a nationality. They've been had a nationality for generations. Blacks, every 10 years, they have some new stuff that they call themselves. And every 10 years, there's some new stuff they call themselves. Then some new stuff they call themselves. But Chinese been Chinese. Whatever, whatever Asian nationality, they've been that. No, nobody telling them they can't be that. But as soon as we start saying that we're whatever, no, you can't be that, or that fez isn't yours, even though I'm coming up here this morning. There, some guy up at the building up there, Asian guy, he's like, that's not a Jamaican hat. Why you not wearing a Jamaican hat? How come you're wearing that or whatever? Well, not Jamaican. Right? Like what? What do you mean? Right? Right? This strategy of claiming some different name, right, may retard black political progress, since everyone is ethnic. And so everybody's ethnic. Ethnicity is not something limited just to our people only because we were in slavery or whatever like that. Everybody has ethnicity, right? And only black Americans depend on the category of race for their cultural and political identity and survival. Everybody else deals with nationality. We're the only ones that deal with race. Everyone else acknowledges that race is the human species. We're the only ones that race is our identity, right? Nonetheless, when Noble Drew Ali said, the name means everything, he was convinced that he could change the political and economic fate of African Americans in the Jim Crow era by ethnicizing the name of the race and by changing the names of the followers, thereby erasing the stigma of slavery and distancing them from the ordinary Negroes who were not respected as Americans. Right? So going back to the slave story and the whole thing with Django on the horse, and why the nigger on a horse, and you can't bring horses, you can't ride around my niggers and all that stuff because he's gonna make them look like they could do this too or whatever, right? You know, like all that is part of the whole thing of, you know, changing the name, changing the dress, changing the everything of the slave so that it's not perceived like that.
It's funny how they even created a movie to show these polarities, you know, these differences. Like, to show us, like, okay, guys, you guys pick. We're going to create a movie for you guys. This is Django. So what do you guys want to do? Be the slave, or you guys want to be the guy that's free?
Yeah.
And people watch the movie and still sleep.
Yeah.
On the plantation and not in chains.
Yeah.
Let's go pick the cotton.
Supposed to be a wake-up call. Yeah.
That's what they do. I know they do that symbolically. Like, they do it just to say fade on there and just say that we put it in movies. We're gonna come out with this movie, that movie. We're gonna show you this. We're gonna show you that.
Yeah.
So they can say that you were never told. Like,
Yeah. Can't say that you weren't told.
Something like that, the Get Out movie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like a perfect physical, you know, like they tell the story from this very physical way, and it's entirely, you know,
Mhm.
the battle of the mind. It's like
Yeah.
complete. It's crazy. Yeah,
Yeah.
the teacup. I sat in that movie theater and meditated when I watched it. And I wanted to leave, and the people I was with begged me to stay. So I stayed and meditated, didn't watch the movie, I heard it. Like, there were lots of people in the dark place. Like, it was, the amount of sorcery that was happening in that room was crazy. Yeah.
After all, thousands of South, East, and Central European immigrants had been able to assimilate into American society in the early 20th century by changing their surnames, dress, and customs. This kind of assimilation was encouraged by white Americans of Northwestern Europe heritage in order to generate loyalty to the United States. The immigration officials at Ellis Island had even aided the process when, unable to spell the names of these immigrants, they gave them new names as they entered America. Although the European immigrants adopted what they took to be genuine American names, dress, and customs, and the Moorish Americans were headed in the opposite direction, the ultimate objective of both groups was the same: to erase the stigma of their minority group status in order to be accepted as genuine Americans by the prevailing culture. So when they, and then this is misdirection, because what the Europeans are doing is that they're actually getting rid of their culture. They're actually getting rid of their culture in order to be assimilated. Yeah, they're actually denationalizing themselves in order to be part of quote unquote America, Canada, whatever. So the example that we use is, remember in high school when Sri Lankans started coming over here, and all of them had like 50-letter last names or whatever like that, and then they'll cut it down because it couldn't fit on any of the documentation. So now they had to, you know, Shri Ravi Davi, whatever, is cut down to Shri Ravi. And in conversation with them, well, how come your name's John Ravi or whatever? Like, oh, no, they did that when we came over here. Well, my name is, Punjab or whatever the case is, right? Oh, my name actually has, and then they pull out their Saudi, their Sri Lankan whatever, and then it's like some 27 letter last name or whatever like that. You can't pronounce this if you try and all that, So they shortened it, not knowing that was them taken away, denationalizing them. But the difference with them is that they have somewhere that they can go back to if they really don't like what's going on or how they're treated or whatever the case is. They can stand up under that national banner, even though the name's cut. They still have that national banner that they could stand up under to say, well, we want certain rights. We want to be treated a certain way. We want to be able to have our dagger. We don't want to be not walking around with our dagger because that's a part of our culture or whatever like that. Okay. And again, to erase the stigma of their minority group status, they're coming here with a majority group status. They're actually getting here with their nationality. And then once they, once they get here, it's presented as if they're a minority, but they don't get the minority treatment that the Negro, black, colored people get. How come they don't, live in the ghettos, and how come they get to start their own communities, and how come they get to come here and have businesses and whatever like that, and our people are not even close to having any of those things, and we've been here longer than majority of people, right? Because we're stuck in that minority status. Noble Drew Ali misread the politics of assimilation in the United States in the 1920s. Assimilation was not a possibility for blacks. Their physiognomy and white society's discriminatory practices against them prevented that. Although new white immigrants also faced prejudice and discrimination, that prejudice was based more on cultural identity than on race. Eventually, their crusade for assimilation and equity was welcomed as America came to be known as the Great Melting Pot. Unfortunately, Noble Drew Ali did not understand that the melting pot was closed to black people in the 1920s, right? And in hindsight, he did understand the melting pot was going to close. That's why he started telling them that they're not black, to get them out of that, to get them out of that stigma that they were in. And then again, going back to all these different examples of these Asiatics in America who were getting themselves out of this dead status by not doing slave things, making sure that their exercise is from a free position instead of that compromised position that has been the accepted norm, that, oh, well, our people are supposed to be slaves, and our people are supposed to be the cursed people, and our people are supposed to be, and nobody else is that. Only these Asiatics in America is treated in this manner. Right? We can understand more clearly how Noble Drew Ali was influenced by the paradigm of Islam that was probably transmitted to him in the context of Pan-Africanism in his time. As in West Africa, Drew Ali's version of Islam was mutually connected to the interests of merchants and traders in its emphasis on small independent businesses in the black community. Along the same lines, the Moorish Science Temple of America was primarily an urban phenomenon emphasizing missionary activity. Typical of Black Islam in West Africa, Noble Drew Ali's version of a new American Islam utilized the indigenous traditions of African American culture as its base for signification. Thus, the movement mixed Islam, Christianity, Freemasonry, and Pan-Africanism. And again, when we say Islam, Christianity, Freemasonry, we're talking about esoteric practices. We're talking about metaphysics. We're talking about astrological. We're talking about a high spiritual charge, not the mundane, dogmatized stuff that people see and call those things today. Competition for identity. The decline of the original leadership base of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Unfortunately, there was a downside to the creative religious consciousness of the African American community in Noble Drew Ali's time. Energies and resources that might have been invested in the development of separate secular, economic, political, educational, and technical institutions under the leadership of experts in these respected fields had instead been placed since slavery in the hands of Black religious leaders. Right? So going back again to why he's not in the religious realm, because he had all these things: economic, political, educational, and technical teachings for the development of the Asiatics, which is absolutely contrary to the Black religious leaders' lessons, that they just want you to come pray and that's it. They just want you to come and sing. They just want you to see everything as outside of yourself, nothing within. Right? These men, no matter how well-intentioned, could not possibly have expertise in all these diverse and complex areas. Encouraging Blacks to invest their resources and energies only in religious institutions was an overt strategy of institutional racism. The result was that African American economic, political, and educational advances did not keep pace with those of a religious nature. The proliferation of so many different Black denominations, churches, and religious movements sometimes resulted in fanaticism among lay people and economic exploitation and self-aggrandizing competition as different leaders offered diverse alternatives for Black signification and identity. And then that's the same stuff going on right now today. That's the same stuff that's happening right now. That you have so many different people claiming to be the leadership of our people, and they got the lessons and they have the whatever that it's going to take to get us out of whatever. There's so many different ones that none of them could be right. Because why would there be so many different aspects of truth? It'll be one truth, and then everybody's speaking this one truth, right? All of these factors eventually contributed to the decline of the original leadership base of the Moorish Science Temple. Converts of the religion were given free national names, El or Bey, both of which signified African heritage, and a nationality card with the message from the Prophet. While the movement was at its height of influence in the late 1920s, some of its members began to flash their nationality cards boldly at white people in the streets of Chicago, telling them that Noble Drew Ali had liberated Black people from the curse of European influence. The Moorish Americans believed that these actions would somehow magically eliminate racial discrimination. Recalling the prosecution of other Pan-African movements at the time, Noble Drew Ali issued a proclamation to his followers. I hereby warn all Moors that they must cease from all radical or agitating speeches while in their jobs or in their homes or on the streets. Stop flashing your cards before Europeans, as this only causes confusion. We did not come to cause confusion. Our work is to uplift the nation. Right? So with with the idea of, again, Noble Drew Ali's influence and what it is that he presented, the reasoning for the fall and the decline of the Moorish paradigm is due to religious leaders coming into the movement, knowing that either there was a plan, there was an agenda to get him out the way, and then once he's out the way, now they can take over. And then once they take over, now once they take the position of being in charge, now they can infuse all of these different aspects to cause confusion, to cause people to say, well, I don't know about this, or well, what's this about, or well, is this Masonic, is this whatever, mainly just to cause confusion. But if they stuck to, Noble Drew Ali's the prophet, these are the principles, these are the lessons, you can't be Negro, black, colored, or anything like that. You got to have a nationality. Once that's enforced, then the direction is going to go in one place. But as soon as they start taking out different aspects of it, right? They take out the metaphysical part of it. They get rid of that. So now everybody's just praying or whatever. They get rid of Moors having their fezzes because they're saying, you got to carry your fez to the temple and all this. When this is birthright, you should be able to wear that anytime. It shouldn't even be a question of could we wear this or whatever the case is, right? Once the confusion is sunk in, then the people have to come to the realization of, well, okay, so what are we gonna do? Well, you need a I think you use that black one right there. You can use that. Yeah, let's plug that up. Right? You got one. Once the people realize that somebody's playing them, then they should be taking the necessary steps to either call out these people who are doing this madness, causing this confusion, right? Or literally removing these people, right? Because Drew Ali also made reference to that this is the people's movement. So if this is the people's movement, then how come the people aren't dealing with it like it's theirs? Why are they dealing with it as if it's not theirs, it's somebody else's, and then they're sitting back waiting for somebody to do something about confusion that's being caused? Although Drew Ali preached loyalty to the American government, many of his followers became convinced that the destruction of white Americans was close at hand. This situation sometimes led to racial disturbances in Chicago, where the Moors became a problem for the police department. During this period, Noble Drew Ali also began to realize that his lack of education was a disadvantage in business. Therefore, he offered leadership positions to several men who were eager to exploit his movement. These new and better educated leaders became rich by selling Asiatic charms, pictures, relics, herbal preparations, and literature to the masses in the context of this Moorish manufacturing corporation. They did not have a sincere commitment to the original theme of signification and identity that Noble Drew Ali had emphasized. Eventually, some of these individuals decided to do away with Noble Drew Ali in order to gain control of the movement's small business and its fortune, which had increased to an estimated 36,000 in its best year. In the end of the Prophet's reign began March 15, 1929, when one of his opponents for leadership, Sheikh Claude Green, was shot and stabbed to death at Unity Club in Chicago. Noble Drew Ali was arrested and jailed for the murder and died several weeks later while he was released on bond. His death had been variously attributed to Green supporters and Chicago Police Department. However, according to Ernest Allen Jr., he died on July 20th, 1929 of tuberculosis. He was laid to rest at Burr Oak Cemetery in Chicago. The coroner's inquest into Green's murder revealed a picture of the Moorish Science Temple that was more like a melodrama than a religious movement. And then going back again to the idea of the people coming in, the individuals who had certain leadership positions and not being the faithful Moors that had these positions, being the Moors who were compromised, being the Moors who had some type of other motives. And once they got in, they realized that, well, this stuff is bigger than we even imagined. They got Grand Treasury and all this. They have all these different manufacturing companies. They have all these different businesses. There's all these different temples sending in finance and all that stuff. Once we get to be heads of each one of these, then we could pretty much control it from the inside. Especially if Noble Drew Ali's not going to be around, they would definitely have the power, which again is part of the whole thing with them trumping up the charges on him with him saying that he's the one that had Green killed or whatever like that, to just get him out the way, even if it's for some weeks or a month, just so that these people could get a firm footing. So when they talk about different heads of the Moorish movement, and they start going down the line of all the leadership in the Moorish movement, and you realize that majority of them were claiming that they were Noble Drew Ali. Majority of them were saying that they're the ones that are the authority. But when Drew Ali around, they were just a member. And there's a lot of statements made from the elders, the Moorish elders, that the Noble Drew Ali had such an impact on the salvation of the people that when he transitioned, people lost it. They lost their ability to think for themselves. So this is why they ended up just jumping on these different bandwagons of individuals, because the people themselves weren't really in it like that, which is why we look at when we look at Noble Drew Ali and what he presented in the 1920s, that it really wasn't for the 1920s. It was really for us today. It wasn't for them back then. They weren't even in the capacity to comprehend what it is that he was presenting. He even told them that, you are not going to know what I brought you. It's now that we're able to really take in what it is that he presented and applying it, that we're seeing the benefit of what it is to have a prophet, just like how everybody else has a prophet. And they don't move and they don't budge. And when they say they're for their prophet 100. And ain't nobody telling them anything about their prophet. You name the prophet and you go find the followers of that prophet, and you'll see that they don't play with, nobody's not disrespecting their prophet. Nobody's going to talk crazy about their prophet. Nobody's going to be, drawing crazy pictures of their prophets or anything like that, right? Because the people stand behind it. And we're today for Noble Drew Ali, what these people should have been back then. They should have been in 100%, because prophet's in your face. What more you want other than seeing the guy at the building, and then the lines going around the building, everybody's coming out healed from whatever it is that they got, right? The Moorish Guide newspaper had testimonials in there of people who took Noble Drew Ali's this, and then it worked. People who had, I got arthritis, took Noble Drew Ali's thing, it cured me. Like mad people were getting healed from the Prophet physical ailments. People who had mental issues claiming the Negro, black, colored, whatever like that, coming into this realizing. Prominent people, when we look at Louis B. Anderson, Oscar De Priest, Jesse Binger, all these people who were, elite Negroes in the 20s, seeing Noble Drew Ali's program, getting down with it, and then putting everything that they have behind him, knowing that so once we do this, then our stuff is gonna be good too. Right? Any thoughts, questions before we carry on? All right, man.
Peace more.
Travel safe.
Peace,
All right.
everybody.
All right. Peace. Islam. During World War II, the FBI investigated all of the above organizations for sedition based on their alleged pro-Japanese propaganda. The Pacific Movement of the Eastern World, like the Moorish Science Temple, was on the FBI's list of seditious movements because of its internationalist perspective. At the same time, its philosophy and objectives were remarkably similar to those of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Its motto was Asia for Asians, Africa for Africans at home and abroad, and its objectives included cultivation of the spirit of love for the ancestral home of dark peoples and the encouragement of the return of those peoples who find no opportunity for development in the United States, and the establishment of a government of their own in the land of their fathers. The Pacific Movement of the Eastern World was based in St. Louis until 1940, and in East St. Louis thereafter, and was indicted for espionage in 1942. On July 30th, 1942, the FBI arrested Mimo de Guzman because of his sponsorship of various pro-Japanese organizations among the American Negroes. De Guzman admitted his Japanese sympathies, but revealed that a Japanese national, Satokata Takashi, was the real power behind such groups in the Pacific Movement of the Eastern World, the Onward Movement of America, and the Ethiopian Pacific Movement. Although he acknowledged that the Moorish Science Temple of America was identical in philosophy and purpose with such pro-Japanese groups, he admitted that there were no direct organizational links between them. Mimo de Guzman's assessment of the Moorish Science Temple of America was accurate. Some of the rhetoric and philosophy of the Moorish American movement was sympathetic to the Japanese position, as is evident in the following excerpt from one of their publications. It is significant that many years ago, when Japan won freedom from mental slavery, we gained physical freedom. And when Japan won her first battle over the Europeans, we won our first mental battle and gained the right to become a national unit through our Prophet Noble Drew Ali. Now Japan has reached the position where she can hold her own with all European nations, say and do when and what she pleases, and our people are aroused to the need of sticking together. These ideas were based on the Moorish Americans' affinity to the Japanese as an Asiatic race and pro-Japanese sympathies that were widespread in Black nationalist organizations in the 1940s. However, and not on the former's involvement in the official Japanese plot to overthrow the United States government. Although there is new evidence that Takashi had direct personal ties with at least two leaders of the Moorish Science Temple, it must be emphasized that the author's perusal of more than 1,000 pages of FBI records on the Moorish Science Temple uncovered no evidence of violent or seditious behavior in the official activities of the organization. Despite the absence of hard evidence of sedition, however, local law enforcement officers raided the Holmes Community, Mississippi branch of the Moorish Science Temple in 1942, and the state grand jury indicted several prominent members for allegedly teaching that the Japanese are fighting a war of liberation for the Asiatic race of which Negroes are members, and that the Japanese army will invade the United States, and that the Negro members in good standing will cooperate with the Japanese. The FBI campaign against the Moorish Americans in Mississippi in the late 1940s was probably based on part in their agitation for equitable treatment in the public facilities of that state. In 1942, several Moorish Americans in Belzoni, Mississippi, were arrested for refusing to ride in the back of the bus. In the FBI report on the incident, the Moorish Americans were classified as an internal security risk. And you go back to Noble Jew Ali, and you realize that they thought that he was such a threat, right? Like the president said, you giving your people Islam is like putting a pair of pants on a horse, it ain't happening. But if you can get some of these people woke up, then we'll back you. And then he got these people to wake up, and then they didn't back him. They were like, forget this, get this guy out the way, right? Even with going to the Pan American Conference and all that, it's still to look at as if the people are going to wake up when they hear the message that's brought. And, you know, like we say, the sorcerers did a good job with having our people in mental slavery, that, you know, they're gonna be mad with Kanye over a t-shirt or whatever like that, but abortion and all that stuff, they don't even care about any of that. And black on black crime, they don't care about none of that. They ain't marching for none of that. But as soon as highwaymen kill somebody, oh, here they go marching for some stuff, right? And the brother kill a brother for some BS, and ain't nobody talking about that, you know. But then as soon as highwaymen kill somebody, here they come marching and picketing again for some things that, what are you doing here? How are you so mad over a t-shirt? But you're not mad about all the other issues that's going on, right? And then when you look at, if you look at the King Alfred plan, and they're telling you about all the infiltrated organizations, and then when you check all the infiltrated organizations, and they start with the Black Muslims being at the top of the list for the infiltration, know that they can't mention Moorish Science Temple, because then that's going to bring attention to it. So they're not going to talk about the thousands of FBI papers on, I think it's like 3,000 pages or something like that, of the Moorish Science Temple infiltration from 1929 going on to 1940s, right? That they had so much agents in there, they had so many operatives giving info that when you check the FBI papers, everything's redacted. That's all you're seeing, you know, some lines and then lines of black on there, and then lines and then names crossed out, and then this crossed out, that crossed out, you know. In 3,000 pages, every page has sections blacked out, right? Which, you know, if the people were competent of what was going on, those people wouldn't even be able to infiltrate. They would have stopped them at the door. You know what I mean? They would have seen certain actions of them and known that, okay, these people aren't really for what this movement's about. You know, if when you go back to the thing they were talking about with the pro-Japanese stuff and all that, right? They would know automatically, oh, these Europeans are trying to undermine Asiatics, right? Which is the same thing why Muhammad Ali said he's not going to fight. Because those are my brothers over there. What am I fighting them for when you're murdering me here right now? You should be the one that I'm fighting. Why am I going to go over there and go fight them? You know, why am I going to take myself out of my land to go into my brother's land to go kill them and then come back here and have nothing? Right? Apparently, the different factions of the Moorish Science Temple of America had different policies regarding selective service registration. An FBI report on the Detroit Temple in 1943 noted two factions of the movement after Noble Ali's death, each with different histories of selective service registration. The majority of the temples followed Kurtman Bey, and the minority attached themselves to the headquarters in Moorish Science Temple of America in Chicago, Temple for Detroit, Michigan, in the latter group. This temple was purely religious with no pro-Japanese or other subversive teachings. All members of this temple registered for selective services except 4 members, 2 now held for grand jury for failure to register. Right now, and again, that's going back to this idea of if the European quote unquote government that is here is able to tell Asiatics they have to go to fight their war, then obviously these people who are claiming that they're Moors or whatever the case is are members of this European body. So they know other way they're going to be telling them that they got to go anywhere. They have to be claiming that they're U.S. citizens or something like that in order to be taken, you know, to grand jury for not registering to go fight, right? At the same time, C. Kurtman Bey, the leader of the major faction of the Moorish American movement from 1929 to 1959, was the subject of a federal case involving internal security, custodial detention, and sedition in 1943. His activities were a major subject of FBI memos and reports in the 1940s. The FBI and selective service harassment of Moorish American men continued into the 1950s as the latter agency continued to make it difficult for Black Muslims to attain conscientious objector status. The factionalism of the Moorish American movement in the World War II era created the ideal circumstance for the FBI to infiltrate various temples with informants who supplied them with detailed information about the plans and activities of the movement. For example, in 1943, 7 Moorish American temples in New Jersey split into 2 antagonistic branches. One observed the dietary laws of Islam and required its men to grow beards and wear fezzes. The other did not require these things. This kind of inside information about the Moorish American movement provided the FBI with a factual basis for their exaggerated significations of Black American Muslims as global conspirators. During this period, the FBI was busy investigating Moorish American temples for sedition in Jackson, Mississippi, Pulaski and Chicago, Illinois, Detroit and Flint, Michigan, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Louisville, Kentucky, Kansas City, Missouri, Birmingham, Alabama, Woodstock, Connecticut, Beckett, Massachusetts, Orangeburg, South Carolina, Prince George County, Virginia. In the midst of this campaign of harassment, H. Peter Bey, a leader of the New Haven Temple, wrote a letter to President Franklin D. Roosevelt which attempted to reconcile the Moorish American movement and the federal government. I have received several visits from the Justice Department, representatives concerning our movement. At this time, I ask an interview with you and cabinet to bring you picture of who the so-called Negro really is. This knowledge will acquaint all with the real meaning of the oft-repeated brotherhood of man. I am enclosing a photo of myself with fingerprints taken by myself for your approval and to be handed over to the Justice Department, FBI. I wish to be known only as a leader, interested primarily in assisting my people in their endeavor for justice and economic equality by teaching them their true identity. This letter was ultimately received by the FBI and placed in its files. It did little to improve the relations between the Moorish Americans and the federal government, and the FBI continued its persecution and negative significations of the Black American Muslims. Islam in the African American experience. And then it goes on for another few pages. So because of this infiltration, they were able to get one, leadership to be compromised. And Juali said that Moors are going to follow their leaders. So once the leadership's compromised, now the fellowship is compromised. Then once the fellowship's compromised, then they're not going to be going out and doing what they're supposed to do. Right? They're going to be going out there under the guise that they're doing what they're supposed to do. But if the people think that this is some religious thing, if the people think that, Noble Juali is a self-proclaimed prophet, he's Freemason, whatever the case is, then you're going to have these issues of not being clear with what this is about, which is, again, part of the prophecy that Juali said, hey, the Moors, this is for the third and fourth generations, because these people who are around me right now in the 1920s, they don't have any connection to this like that. They're going to be taking this and misrepresenting it, not only misrepresenting it, but they're going to cause the nations of the world to look at it as something that they don't even want to be affiliated with, right? Which, when again we go to the oral statements, there was the statement that after Noble Juali transition, the European went to the temple to go thank the prophet for telling him to take the money out the bank because, the stock market was going to crash or whatever like that. And there were certain people who listened to what the prophet said. So he went back to the temple to go thank the prophet and realize prophet transition, right? So there were individuals who were outside of the Moorish movement that were inspired by Juali's message. Same thing that we have with the letter of with Bruton, Leona Bruton and Madame Bruton, who they wanted Noble Juali to come here to teach certain things. So in hindsight, we know that there was definitely operations in place to have people not consider Noble Juali's message to be the message for the Asiatics. And majority of that was from individuals after he transitioned that were infiltrators that came in to spread whatever it is that they're going to spread, so that, we wouldn't be able to be here right now talking like this. We just went back to the Negro state, and then that's that. Right? Any comments or questions?
I was reading one of the oral statements.
Yeah.
119 said, Sister M. Howell Temple 19 said that the prophet will be pointed his finger. Holy prophet pointed his finger and said, "My sheep know the sound of my voice, and the stranger will not follow." So what I take from that is even like the dirty Moors that know that they're Moors, it's like they know they're Moors, but they're not following like the blueprint. The blueprint's there, and it's like you're going like it's like the thing of going into like case laws, and you don't go into case laws, and you just have the basics, you stick to the basic stuff. You don't need to get deep into it, and then now we have all this. But he said only the ones that know his voice will follow, the strangers won't. So like, it's clear to see today why there's so many of us unconscious Moors still out there that haven't joined the Moorish Science Temple of America yet. As Robin said, they won't follow because they don't know the sound. It's not for them.
And it has to be something that, that's the only way that this is going to move is if the people move it. The only way that this is going to be anything is if the people see it as theirs and then they do something with it. Other than that, it's going to be what it is. Whatever presentment it has from whether from history, from outsiders, from whoever. Once it has no people standing up saying, "Oh no, that's not how it goes," or "That's not how it's supposed to be," or "No, you're in error with what you're saying about Noble Drew Ali or whatever," then the confusion is going to be out here, which is again why Drew Ali made reference to Moors changing the literature. In order to change the people, you got to change your literature, and changing the literature means producing literature so that Moors are telling our story, because nobody can't tell our stuff. It has to be us that tells our story. As soon as somebody else is telling our story, it's left open for interpretation, for misrepresentation, and anything else, because we use the reference point of a brother. I was talking with a brother yesterday, and I sent him like RV Bay publications and Canaanland Moors or whatever, and then he came back and he said, "Yeah, I'm just trying to get some questions on UCC1 filing, and how do I do the filing or how you get to there, like where you get to UCC1 filings from where I send you." "Oh, well, I'm just studying for Moors, just going online looking for Moors or whatever like that." Like, no, it doesn't go like that. It doesn't go like that. There's too much infiltration for that.
Seems like a misdirection too, because even like a lot of these so-called Black conscious leaders, or just NOI people and stuff like that, it seems like they have the foundation of what the Moorish Science is teaching.
Yeah.
But they don't really. They sometimes bring it up, but they don't even really say honor it as I think they should be honored.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're just trying to do it their own way.
Yeah.
To try to bring in money or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they have the Jesuit in their hand, they're behind them. Giving them the check every month, making sure that they're staying down with the Jesuit stuff. But yeah, they know the stuff.
They know.
Yeah.
They just
can't.
Yeah.
They're not gonna get the check next month. They're gonna pay the bill.
Yeah. The word is, for example, that after Drew Ali transition, NOI just inherited all the temple people from Detroit, because there was nothing else there for them, right? And then the heads of the Moorish Science Temple in Detroit were the ones who became the founders of the Nation of Islam. Now, they could have just kept the sign up, and they could have just kept saying that they're Moors and all that. But what would make them transition other than somebody came, gave them a check or something like that? Because it doesn't even make sense that you make it that far to be in the head of a Moorish Science Temple, and then you're taking down the sign and calling it something different because Drew Ali's not around anymore. And like you say, they have all the They have the foundation and the lessons, you know, but there had to be some type of infiltration for them to completely 180. No, that's the only thing that makes sense, because you can't, anybody who studies this knows you can't get to, I'm not Negro, black, color, we're Moors, and then turn around and go back to be Negro. Unless you're a sellout. You know? Unless somebody gave you something to make you switch.
Or even certain people that I've bumped into doing, like, you know, they study the comedic science and stuff like that. And then I'll be like, oh, you know, what Canaanland, you know, they'll be like, yeah, but this allows me to be more liquid.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
What does that mean?
like they don't want to follow the laws
Yeah.
and the Moors and stuff like
Yeah.
that. So it allows them to be still kind of Canadian in the jurisdiction of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and then that's whatever school of thought, you know, it's not just them. Like whatever school of thought, you know, they don't want to be Islamic. You know, they don't want, well, do I have to wear a fez if I'm a Moor? And you know, do I have to say El Bey and all that? Can I be, you know, Mustafa or whatever like that? Well, yeah, but not really, you know, because yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and again, a lot of it is because, you know, once you're looking at what Noble Drew Ali presented with an open mind, it's going to lead you to other stuff, right? And most people don't want to deal with where they're led. You know what I mean? They don't want the full truth. You know, they want little aspects of the truth that you know is not going to make them completely, you know, lose themselves. You know, which is really them finding themselves, because they're lost themselves if they're not here. You know, the real freedom is knowing the truth about your nationality and your birthrights. The real freedom, the real getting out of mental slavery, is knowing that all is mental. You know, if you know all is mental, you probably won't be a slave. Because you know it's going to be based on where your mind's at. You know, heaven or hell is a frame of mind, not some place you're going to.
And I feel like a lot of people that are more like have national roots, wherever they come from, they're more receptive to knowledge.
Oh yeah,
like the Colombian or
big time.
They're more receptive to, but when I go and try to present to a more
yeah,
person, whatever, they're kind of like
standoffish with it. Yeah. You know, and that's part of us, you know, for ourselves, knowing that we're on the right path with this, you know, because this is an international thing. You know, everybody knows who the Moors are internationally, and then everybody knows what nationality is internationally. The only people who don't know is these weirdos in North America. That's it.
Even the Earth knows.
You know what I mean? Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it's crazy, but you know that's the work that the sorcerers did. You know what I mean? They have our people that removed from the reality. The reality is that everybody has a nationality, no matter where it is that they come from. They might be saying tribes and whatever like that to you, but when you press them, I know, but like what's the origin? Oh yeah, they know their national origin. You know what I mean? You know.
I wanted to read another role statement.
Yeah, more go ahead.
As we're talking and adding on to what you're saying about how the Moor read some Moors and said they want to do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading 159, the world statement. Says Brother Cook Bay said that the Holy Prophet said, one day you're going to look for the good Moors and you won't be able to find them. Some people do not attend their meetings. This is a quote. Attend their meetings as they should. And it says, when you go to look for the good Moors, they don't know where to find them. And there may be other events that come up where the good Moors may find it necessary to leave the cities to flee to safety and unlawful. The unfaithful will not know where to find the good Moors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yeah, you know what I mean?
And that's even something, you know, when they say, when he talks about fleeing the cities and whatever like that, look at it as a mental thing, right? So when we look at all the people out there now who are claiming that they're Moors and whatever like that, you know, 90% of them, they're opportunists. They're about to go in your pockets. You know what I mean? And you can't even find a good Moor right now. You go online just looking up Moors. You know, I remember a few years ago, you could punch up Moors and certain stuff is only coming up. You know what I mean? You go on YouTube, you put in Moors, only certain videos were coming up. Now you put that stuff in and you're getting any and everybody.
Yeah, the algorithm did that on purpose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because when my boy searched up more, I'm like, type in more. It's like, what do you mean you don't know? It's like, you have a phone, you're always on Google searching stuff up.
Search that up.
Search it up.
Yeah.
So he goes and searches it up. He's like, oh, you guys are like, I'm on a board. And because it gives you the stuff that doesn't give you the real stuff. You know, it doesn't give you the neutrality. This is what we are. It gives you the black guys and the guys from Africa, North Africa.
There's some pages that are working really hard to like kind of slander or say some bad stuff, and it's just like, you know, they're trying to deter people from the truth. You know?
Right.
The only sole foundation is this. There's nothing else that is gonna redeem the people the way that they want to be redeemed. And then we know that from looking at everything that we have today and then tracing everything back. And none of these people existed in the 1920s. You name them as a school of thought. They didn't exist in the 1920s other than UNIA and NAACP and Moorish Temple.
The Zionist temple?
Right? Yeah, the Zionist Temple of the Moorish Jews, NAACP, which you already know they're sellouts already, right? Moorish Science Temple, UNIA, and then everybody else is some foreigner from here trying to teach something. But majority of them, when you trace them back, they don't go past 1930. You know, and then again goes back to that thing. Well, if there's something pre-1930, then why not be part of that? Like, why are you making up some new thing for people to be part of? Why not just be part of something that's tied to ancient? But you know, that's up to the people. And like I said, the people under sorcery that, you know, start talking about Noble Jew Ali and they start getting funny. Much less if you bring up Islam and bring up Moorish Science Temple and whatever else, everybody gets in this weird energy when you start bringing up certain things, you know. And like you're saying, with everybody else was receptive. There was an Asian dude who was up there telling me about, that's not a Jamaican hat or whatever. It was Asian. You know, all the Asiatics around there, they're just, you know, looking at other stuff, you know. When we did the outreach and we're giving out newspapers, and the Asiatics, they don't want, oh no, Negro, black color, oh no, I don't want one. It's free though, you don't, oh no, I don't want one or whatever like that. Europeans want it, you know, Hindus want it, you know, guys in turbans, they want it. Then whoever, oh wow, what's this? What are you guys doing out here? Questions, our people, nothing. Yeah.
Church right here.
Yeah, church be right next door. They never set a foot in here once, ever. Not once ever. Did they say, hey, let's just go in there and see what's going on? Nothing. You know? But again, Jew Ali made reference that you know, the brothers from the East are gonna be the ones who's gonna save you. If you're trying to be saved, it ain't gonna be your own. Because their position is to enslave. You know, our own duty is to Christianity, to the European policy enforcers, to everything that has nothing to do with them. And then everything that has to do with our people, they want nothing to do with. You know, and again, that could only be sorcery. Could only be witchcraft they're pulling on people to have them so disconnected from truth. and have them just embracing lies as if it's truth, you know. And again, a good example is this stuff going on with Kanye right now, because he told him everything that's gonna happen. You know, he told him.
Take this video down.
Yeah, he told him. Like, the same people who's gonna take this video down took it down, that he was talking crazy about. And then people aren't saying, "Oh wow, hey, they actually took it down when he said," like they're actually real. No, they're not real. They're not real. Go on to those that call themselves Jays and are not.
Well, it's funny you said that, because I was just reading one of the prophecies right there. It says 165, the weak prophet says, "Woe upon the one that scatters my throne."
Yep.
Right. And here, and in the Quran and Mecca, it says like Christians and Jews are allies of each other.
Yeah.
So, and on to that, 166 says the Holy Prophet said, "Woe upon the man that calls himself a Jew."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. The real deal. The real deal that it's all us. It's all us. Yeah, there's four. There's the Holy Quran, Moorish literature, the 101 questionnaire, and the mysteries of the Silent Brotherhood. And then the oral statements is compilation of Moors who were around during the Prophet, that they documented things that Noble Drew Ali said in that time. And when you go through those, and then you see all the things that he spoke about, and then you see the things that happened relative to what he spoke about, should again, inspire people to take what Noble Drew Ali is saying at face value, because he didn't sneak around with it. It was upfront in the open. He wasn't holding back any punches or whatever like that. And it's for the people to take it and do whatever it is that they're gonna do with it.
Yeah, he didn't need a breath when he was throwing those punches either. He was just swinging.
Yeah.
He was swinging. He's still swinging. Because even what's going on right now with the weather, I don't know if anybody's paying attention.
Mm-hmm.
It's warmer.
Yeah.
But the Prophet did say one day the south is going to be colder, and then the north will be warmer.
Yeah.
The south.
Mm-hmm.
So, said, who doubts my prophecies is watching manifest.
Yeah.
Watch my prophecies. So,
that's all.
Sometimes.
Just watch the prophecies, and the more of them that happen, lets you know the more we need the prophet. If the prophecies is still going on, and then some of them repeating themselves 3-4 times over, obviously people are messed up, because they should have been to had the prophet's lessons and applied it and be out whatever mess that they're in. But the work is there's a lot of work to still be done. There's a lot of work to still be done. So we'll just go to do our Quran and have our Quran reading. And again, when we're looking at Noble Drew Ali and the things that he presented, it's coming from, a lot of things are coming from multiple different sources, and we just have to be cognizant of the fact that although it's coming from different places, these are selected things for us so that we can get ourselves in order. We're going to go to chapter 12. Jesus teaches the common people at a spring tells them how to obtain eternal happiness. In silent meditation, Jesus sat beside a flowing spring. It was a holy day, and many people of the servant caste were near the place. And Jesus saw the hard-drawn lines of toil on every brow, in every hand. There was no look of joy in any face. Not one of all the people could think of anything but toil. And Jesus spoke to one and said, "Why are you all so sad? Have you no happiness in life?" The man replied, We scarcely know the meaning of that word. We toil to live and hope for nothing else but toil, and bless the day when we can cease our toil and lay down and rest in Buddha's city of the dead. And Jesus' heart was stirred with pity and with love for these poor toilers. And he said, "Toil should not make a person sad. Men should be happiest when they toil. When hope and love are back of toil, then all of life is filled with joy and peace. And this is heaven. Do you not know that such a heaven is for you?" The man replied, "Of heaven we have heard, but when it is so far away, and we must live so many lives before we reach that place." And Jesus said, "My brother man, your thoughts are wrong. Your heaven is not far away. It is not a place of metes and bounds. It is not a country to be reached. It is a state of mind. Allah never made a heaven for man. He never made a hell. We are creators and make our own. Now cease to seek for heaven in the sky. Just open up the windows of your heart, and like a flood of light, a heaven will come and bring a boundless joy. Then the toil will be no cruel task." The people were amazed and gathered close to hear the strange young master speak, imploring him to tell them more about the Father God Allah, about the heaven that men can seek on earth, about the boundless joy. And Jesus spake a parable. He said, "A certain man possessed a field. The soil was hard and poor, but constant toil, he scarcely could provide enough food to keep his family from want. One day a miner who could see beneath the soil, in passing on his way, saw this poor man and his unfruitful field. He called the weary toiler and said, 'My brother, know you not that just below the surface of your barren field rich treasures lie concealed? If you plow and sow and reap in a scanty way, and day by day you tread upon a mine of gold and precious stones, this wealth lies not upon the surface of the ground, but if you will but dig away the rocky soil and delve deep into the earth, you need no longer toil and soil for naught.' The man believed, 'The miner surely knows, and I will find the treasures hidden in my field.' And then he dug away the rocky soil, and deep down in the earth he found a mine of gold. And Jesus said, 'The sons of men are toiling hard on desert plains and burning sands and rocky soils, and are doing what their fathers did, not dreaming that they can do aught else. Behold, a master comes and tells them of a hidden wealth, that underneath the rocky soil of carnal things are treasures that no man can count, that in the heart of the richest gems abound. He who wills may open the door and find them all.' And then the people said, 'Make known to us the way that we may find the wealth that lies within the heart.' And Jesus opened up the way. The toilers saw another side of life, and toil became a joy." Islam. Any thoughts on that chapter?
Like that one right there, I think is what the Hindus, like, would he say that likes to work the most? The coolies, right?
Yep.
The coolies, and they ain't look sad when they're happy, when they're doing their thing.
Yeah.
They're just doing their thing.
Mexicans either.
Mexicans, they're just doing their thing, working.
Yep.
All right, I gotta go work now. All right. People miserable, they want to get up and go to work. Like sometimes my mom, like, going back into it. Sometimes my parents would be miserable going to work. But oh, I'm so miserable. Like,
Yeah.
Now that I know, it's like the worst off, right? Like, not knowing that you have nationality, all these different things.
Yeah. And that's key, you know, to the unlocking of the torment or whatever that people go through. You know, the key is having a national understanding, because when you look at all the other nations of the world, they're working, no matter what it is that they're doing. You know, the Asians, they're doing the technological stuff, and they're in that realm. You know, they do that with such honor and praise. People probably might not be able to catch up to them the way they toil in their realm. You know, and then you look at you know, when we look at the Moorish paradigm, and then you got people telling them $5,000 for papers and $3,000 for papers, because they know that, you know, people are out here toiling. Take your finance, so I don't have to toil, you know. But the key is knowing that, you know, the happiness or the heaven or the whatever is not some leaps and bounds or meets and bounds. It's not some place over there or whatever. All that stuff is in the mind. And once you master the mind, then anything is possible. Everything is possible.
It's like removing the double consciousness, it's making a one.
Yeah.
So now you know who you are.
Yeah.
Nationality, you know the difference.
Yeah.
So you can have work in the environment that people know. They ask you a question, or we learn what you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even that in itself, the idea of knowing is toiling. The majority of people don't want to even do that, you know, because that's some work in itself. That's some you know, smashing some bricks or whatever like that, you know, putting some time into studying so that you can know, because majority of people would rather not know. They love their ignorance.
But they come to you and they try to get the information.
Yeah. Just so that they can do whatever with it. Yeah. And that's how majority get caught up, because there's something that goes with knowing, right? Application goes with knowing, and you can't claim that you know without applying. Peace more, right? You can't claim to know without applying. And then you can't apply what you don't know. Somebody can't tell you, oh yeah, well, yeah, just do this, you know, like with the stuff that you're doing. And then you're telling people, yeah, do this, do that, whatever like that. But if they're not in there doing it regular and putting their hands to it, they're never gonna know. All they're being is told. All they're doing is giving instructions. And there has to be some independence there with regard to the learning. You know, there has to be. We made the reference point of if you haven't had the experience of fall asleep with the book on you, or roll over in the night and the book jab you in the ribs or whatever like that, yeah, you're not really studying. You know, pen, right? Wake up and the bed's a mess with ink, pen leaked out or whatever like that. You know what I mean? Everything's yellow from the highlighter. Cap came off in the night. Yeah. You know, and all that is part of the Moorish toiling. You know, the studying, the going within, trying to find yourself. You know, finding finding what this is for you. You know what I mean? Because being here, there's something in this for you. There's something that you could bring to the table. You know, it's what are you able to bring to the table? And then how is what you're bringing to the table not just going to benefit yourself, but benefit humanity as a whole, you know? Because there's no making it to this place without, you know, going through, you know, all the BS that you had to go through, which again, even that's toiling, you know, all the mess that you had to go through to get to this place where you finally know now, okay, we know our nationality, know that we got to read, know that we got to study, know that we got holy books, know that we got a prophet. To get here was work to get here. Ain't nobody slip and fell into Moorish science. You know, like you went through trials and tribulations to be at this place where we can say, yeah, we're Moors, right? You had something back there, Roman?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff because I'm just feeling like we are, you know, you say that, you know, you're saying, okay, it's about nationality and knowledge, but one of the things that I think I see with every other nation is that there's a preordained or a preset goal. That goal, let's say, is a piece of land, their family, the manifestation of their heretical line or something like that. To me, I feel like part of the issue for us, you know, and I was just contemplating because I think that it's part of the leadership that is part of this issue here. What is our goal? What are we looking to attain? Knowledge, like you say, without application, there is nothing. So what are we applying that knowledge to? I was thinking about this the other day. 9 times out of 10, people do slip into this too, because they're slipping into this because they're trying to get out of something. If 90% of the people that were coming into this weren't coming into this about trying to get out of something, we might have something. But ultimately, people are only getting this because, hey, you want to get off on some charge? You want to stay here on some whatever? It's not about from the aspect of, hey, did you know that you were the ones that built the pyramids? Did you know that you were the ones that, you know, I mean, even when we look to some of our stars, the Jordans, the whoever else, that came from our DNA pool. Yet we don't see the fact that it's really that work that really manifests that stuff. Those tend to be accidents by the end of it. Mm-hmm. The Jordans, you know, whoever. But really, each one of us is that, right? So what is it that, you know, as a Moor, when someone says, okay, you know, you say that I'm a Moor. Well, what is our estate? Our state should be this land, right? Mm-hmm. To a certain degree, but that's not going to come until we come together. So in part of it, it's the community. But where is our community?
They're out there playing Negro black colored.
Well, fair enough. But what I'm saying, so our community is here, but I'm saying like this is some of the stuff. You know, I was thinking that we need to have an offline meeting at a time. What are we doing next?
Well, that's what we're saying. Like when we look at if we take the Sri Lankans, for example, right? The Sri Lankans don't have some of them saying that they're brown people, and then another bunch of them saying that they're Christian, and another bunch of them saying that they're whatever. All of them are focused on the one.
That's the stuff that's been
the one thing.
But that's, you know, you made a comment about sort of, you know, you don't have to tell the Chinese children to go to school. The reason why you don't is because the parents are Chinese, and so that stuff is ingrained in them. The reason why we have to tell our ones to get to the temple is because our parents, like you say, were black or Jamaican or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. But from the perspective of us Moors here, what are we about? You know what I mean? Like I've been sort of on this thing with the feminine energy until we can start waking some of this feminine energy up to. But I realize that is the path less traveled, because ultimately they're the ones that this attack really has been against. Yeah. Right? So, you know, I feel like, you know, and then you were making the comment about, you know, 9/10 of these people sort of don't know. I can't remember what you said, but we do understand that it was said that the sheep will know they say that
the sheep know the voice of, or know the voice of their shepherd, right? So ultimately, right, so ultimately, to me, we're hearing the voice, but what is the voice telling us? Like, what is the next step? Because ultimately, like we say, knowledge without application is in a sense a wasted thing. So what are we looking, what is our goal? Because the Sri Lankans and those people, they don't really even, the goals don't even have to be there anymore. They've kind of gone and come back. If those Sri Lankans really were about, and anytime those Sri Lankans or the Chinese or anything are about anything, it gets done. What I find with us,
it's the numbers with them.
well,
They
fair enough,
can get it done with what
but
they.
we have the numbers, they're just not awakened.
No, but that's the issue. They're not
We have
awakened.
the numbers, there are every.
Yeah, the awakening.
So my question again is, what are we doing that's not waking them up?
It's not, you can't wake them up.
No, we are doing.
Well, I might.
Because we are doing.
I might say that some of it could be on us.
We are doing what
Well,
You're capable of doing, but you can't make
Cannot be told in words.
say that what?
It can't be told in words, he said. So from what, I don't know, like, how you interpret that from when he said it's a conflict, it's gonna be done in a conflict that cannot be.
But I don't even know if that applies to what I'm saying here right now. But
Because they're saying, what are we gonna be, like, what's our next
that
step?
conflict is one within us. I'm saying outside of this, it's like we see the so-called church next door. They have a little movie night, children show up or something, right? They, supposedly, I guess they're leading us to God in a sense. So this is the goal for them.
How would they be leading us to God?
I'm saying this is what, when people go to church, right? In their mind, right?
Right.
Which is the only mind that counts. At
But
that
that-
point
but
for
that
them.
doesn't mean that it's right.
Is that
truth though?
that doesn't mean that is right though.
But it is still giving them something to go towards. So we're saying we have this nationality, right? So this nationality is what to us? The only thing I see that it represents to the people outside of us here coming into the nationality is, as I said, they're coming here to get off on some charge or to stay because they've got some deportation order or something, as an example. So my question being, how is it that we can start to present things that people can interpret that nationality as a benefit to them? Because ultimately, being black in a lot of cases ends up being more of a benefit to them. But we're going to talk about, but hold on, but we're going to say that knowledge is the answer to this. But at the end of the day, knowledge in $6 gets you a coffee. So my question to you is, how do we? Yes. So my point. So you just proved my point. That it really doesn't mean anything, does it?
It's a perspective. It's like we bought 100 acres of land, it's like 30 people, but they sold the idea that, oh, we're all black, like let's get together, black people. But now that we have the land, there's no real direction or goal.
Absolutely. This is, I was talking with Cujo about this last week about the whole aspect but we understand that probably a lot of that too is the same thing with this church thing. It's analogous to that. They're giving you the so-called God, the God is really within it. What are you producing after that? The nationality thing, that's why I see this is the introduction. This is like the introduction to what's next, is how I see this. Whereas in a sense, for a lot of us, I think we come into this, and I think this is what is.
You realize one thing? No, sorry, I want to cut you. One thing with other nations, what I observe, the Chinese or whatever nation, they would come here and they would get stuff from even the government, assistance from the government. Us Chinese are whatever. We don't.
Yeah.
In other words, when we find out, like you just said, when we find out who we are, sometimes we fall down. Buckle start on us. Buckle.
Yeah.
It's a buckle to even come up.
Yeah.
To really stand up and say, yes, this is who I am.
Yeah.
Never mind the rest of the thing we want to do. This is the level we are right now. But people still not waking up yet. So it's so hard. Because remember, the church get handled. All those are the people, they give them business to run without no tax because they just come on whatever.
Yeah.
We don't get none of that, bro, and it's our place.
Yeah, but you see.
So those are some of the things that contribute to where we are.
Where we're at.
But I'm
Not
going
but
to,
if we can eliminate that but, then we fix the problem.
but here's what I'll say to you.
Not but.
Here's what I'm saying to you, all of that stuff that you're talking about is still small pittance to what really happens over there. None of this stuff that gets built on any of their side ever comes from any kind of donations. That's the stuff that they give to black people. Any of these nations that are really doing shit, it's coming from their own people going out there and working because this is what they're about.
But that's what I was saying with,
Yeah, they're
with
coming
them.
in knowing themselves.
Yeah, that's
Yes, but we're
So they
here.
come here knowing themselves
So
and
hold
bring what they
on.
have.
Oh, what I'm trying to show you is we're here, so we're behind it because they've taken
Way
that.
behind. Way
So,
behind.
but the deal being that we need to, but they still come. We've seen how many people have come through these doors. Why aren't they staying? Because ultimately they come here, they get their card, and they move on. Because the card, remember, is for no one else's salvation but themselves. But because we don't have a unified, like the gentleman says, they had 100 people come, or however many people, and they got a piece of land. These are some Africans or whatever, came over here from their land to come and buy some land here. But
to buy the land and not do anything with it is it's useless.
Brother, but you've already told me, just like I told you, if they give us our stuff, are we ready for it? Oh, well, let them just give it to us. That's what's going to happen to us.
No,
We're
it's
going to
not.
get our land and we ain't going to do anything.
No, because we have a national mindset, so it ain't gonna be
But we have a national mindset. What do you mean by that?
that just like any other nation who gets whatever
But
here.
he just told me that these guys got some land and they were nationals, right?
No, they're not nationals. They're black. What do you mean they're nationals? How are they nationals if they're
What I'm
black?
trying to show you is that they are coming at this from a perspective of coming together. You're saying that the fact that we're going to say that we're Moors or Moroccans or Americans.
We have.
So hold on, but we're here as Moors and Americans here right now. So what have we produced?
What do you mean? What have we
I'm
produced?
asking the question. So
We
we're
got
here
we
right now
got
as
we got
Moors.
a temple here.
Huh?
We got a temple here.
Right. Okay.
The smaller one years ago, now it's bigger.
We had a smaller one years then. We have a bigger one now.
All right. Well, I'm telling you, I can see
We're going on 13th Noble Drew Ali Day.
So that's
Like,
that's our attainment.
With what we have, yeah.
Well, I'm saying
what
this,
else are we
I'm trying
gonna
to show
attain with
you-
what we have?
What I'm explaining is that, and I've been saying this to you, and I get into these ways every once in a while, that our activity has to step up.
Yeah, but the activity is only gonna step up if you have active people. If you don't have active people,
though, bro.
yeah, I'm saying.
The people that we have, the active ones that we have that do come regularly, we have to give like some
So as I said,
Like I was saying, the Sri Lankans, if we say active people,
I want
if
to
we
say,
say-
let's stop bringing anyone else into this.
we gotta bring them in.
No, why don't we bring ourselves into this? Why don't we bring ourselves?
Because
into
we
this?
already know we already know where we're at. It ain't no secret that we could go look at the damn Drew Ali Day pictures and circle on the people who haven't been here for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, where if they were here,
Yeah, but hold on.
if they were
hold
here-
on. So fair enough. Go on to WhatsApp and 90 people are there, or whatever, or 30.
Not barely even that.
Well, whatever. More people are there than are here, right?
Probably not. You only, bro, like if you
I don't-
look,
I don't-
if you look, it's the same names again too. Just like how it's the same people you regularly see here in the temple. It's only going to be a
Yes,
handful.
It's a handful.
Hold on, but like we've said, with that handful, what are we doing?
we're doing what we can with the handful.
We're
doing what we can. Unless you-
keep doing some more. That's what-
Unless-
we keep saying if we were to get everything back that we needed, what would we do with it? Guaranteed if we were to get 7 mil tomorrow,
But it would be gone in a couple of years. Guaranteed the way we're at.
Come on, man, get off of
Guaranteed
that.
the way we're at.
negative.
That's not negative. That's
No,
truth. That's truth.
no way.
That's truth.
No way.
No, man.
Me personally, I don't give me 7 mil by myself.
No way.
Anyways, what was the last thing you were making a point though before you were saying was it the no Julie thing? What was it that you were saying? You were saying something before about take a look at the pictures. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was saying if we look at the pictures, we could circle all the people who haven't been here.
But
That if they-
so hold on.
If you're thinking like that, then that means the same leadership that you're talking about, there's a problem then.
I'm part of that leadership.
Exactly.
I'm holding myself absolutely accountable
You
for
must
the
be part of the problem then.
Absolutely, I might be, but guess what? But guess what? I am self-analyzing, and that's what I'm doing. Reflection is the business of man. So I'm reflecting as part of the administration, saying that I think that there are issues here, and then you tell me that they're not.
I know there's issues here.
Oh, okay, but then you said that, but you just came out of your mouth saying that we're doing everything we can.
I didn't say that.
Oh, whatever. Anyway.
No, but we are doing everything we can.
I'm just trying to explain to you guys, and this is important stuff that I'm saying that we should be talking about. From the aspect of what else are we doing? I walk out there, I'm out there, and as I said, you know, we did a street clean thing. I'm just saying we should always be pushing the boundaries. And instead we come in here and we're talking about a lot of stuff, and I'm saying there's more for us to do.
Yeah, but like we said, if we're saying
on the table, how will you lay some stuff on the table?
You, I'm talking.
No, I'm saying you go too, because you're more too.
Stuff to put on the
You
table
know,
right
so
now.
maybe that's the problem too.
No, you say you have stuff, so start with yours.
Hey, what you see that board right there? You see all that? That's me. That's me thinking all that shit up. So keep going. Tell me some stuff. Anyways, what were you saying, Joe?
I don't get that.
the work that has been done and that's gonna be done is by those who are doing it. Like it's not gonna be so if we have like that's why I brought the thing with the pictures, that if we have 80 people at Drew Ali Day and only 20 people are putting in their finance, it's only gonna go so far. That has nothing to do with.
Why is that? Why is there 80 people at Noble Joy Elite, supposed the prophet or our national head?
You gotta go ask those 60 people. You gotta go ask those 60 people that aren't doing whatever.
But maybe
that's what has to be. That's who has to be talked to. Yeah, I can't say why they're not doing something. I know what I'm doing.
I know what I'm doing.
I can't talk for.
To me, that's
I can't talk for them.
See some of the self-absorption, because on a certain level, I say this, well, I'm doing my part. But maybe there's something else that we're not doing that is making that
No, maybe
as the organization that is only having those people show up.
No, maybe it's those people not doing their part. Why? Maybe it's those people not doing their part.
I said flower master, bro.
As I said, well, we see states open up last until the end of days, then, bro.
Of course, we cannot stop saying
And I have people.
How did the Sikhs take over the trucking business in Brampton? Like we were there way before that.
They went and did some work, bro. That's what they did, and I'll tell you this, because probably none of us do know that. I'm sure they're talking. I'm sure they're meeting. When they have their meetings, everyone shows up.
Exactly.
But then you're going to say that it's on them. But I say that it's somewhat maybe on the administration to a certain degree. So, anyways, I am just reflecting on stuff, and I don't take, from my perspective, I don't take it that it might not be something that we're not doing that is different. Just because we put the prophet's name on our lips doesn't mean that we don't have that we shouldn't be doing other things or adapting stuff. Because
I wanted to add something on to like the whole overall thought of what you're thinking. And everybody's entitled to their thoughts, but it said there's a saying that says a nation can never attain get higher than its women, or be higher than its women, or raise higher than its women. So we need to raise the women first.
Then you need women to raise the women.
Right. So Muhammad Ali was holding the woman in his hand. You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but so interesting.
So go higher than the woman.
Yeah, but so interesting. So remember this. Even think about that image. The prophet's holding the woman. Yet we'll say here, that's the woman's thing. Let them deal with it.
No.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Who said that?
I'm saying as it. Not
I
you.
wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
Anyway.
I wouldn't say that. Me personally, I wouldn't say that. We're very
Well, remember, it's just about us, right? It's just about ourselves. As I said, until we come at this from a collective thing, trying to figure out how we can do these things, just saying that I'm looking after myself isn't probably going to fix this issue. I don't know what it is. Because you're talking about what do you mean? I'm talking about the aspect that if we're looking to get those things, i.e. even the land that the brother's talking about, we need to start having some plans, and we need to start moving towards some stuff. It's just now that we're just starting up a little financial group 10 years into this. That's only come from the aspect that people, no one else is coming up with that idea. You're telling me
the wrong people then those times, because I haven't been in this 10 years yet. I don't believe it. Probably almost 10 years now. So, like I said, it's something.
Well, you know what? I had an interesting thing. You remember Kuja and I used to ask this. Name 3 things you've done for the temple. Name 3 things other than paying your dues that you've done for the temple.
Even if people were to name the 3 things, everyone's go around naming.
I want to hear one.
But that's still not gonna help or even benefit anything.
Well,
If you're
then
thinking about
I guess then there's our issue, right?
One, for me, this lady, this sister, I introduced her and brought her here. For the longest time now, she's.
Bro, that.
Wait.
You said name something, bro.
Oh,
Okay,
man.
So hold on, but you gotta name something you're doing for the temple. Bringing someone into the temple
That's
isn't
a part of upliftment for the humanity, bro.
Okay.
That's the main thing, upliftment for the humanity.
No, it's not. No, because what you're doing is you're splitting hairs on this.
Just splitting
What's
hairs.
splitting hairs?
That's something that was done. That was something that was done.
Okay, so that's one. So you've done that. Okay, so name 3.
And out of all the women that was even here today, there's only seen Damarine and her. And we're talking about following humanity. That's the lead of it, right? Until the women wake up, none of this happened. Majority of the people in here are.
Well,
are
The only female here is the one that I brought here.
right.
Hey, for me, I score something. I don't know what you thinking. Today, at least today, to the conversation we have about it, upliftment with noble joy and the lady, or the goddess, the female, and it's only one here today.
Talking about something more physical.
I'm hoping to bring this message out back to my people. And
Who are the people?
well, anybody in my circle, anybody in my generation, anybody that I know personally, family, friends, like that's my contribution. And hopefully, once I start getting more studied, I can add.
Well, I'll say this to you. Let's say this. Let's retract that because we've asked this question before and it ends up getting really greasy. It's not even from a perspective to you. The question's not even being asked to you in that sense on a certain level because you're just in this on a certain level for a minute, so it wouldn't be there like that. But I'm saying some of the stuff that we, as an example, Rennie would go and rent a spot at the library. We'll pay for the spot at the library, get the food, and have people come out there. That's an example of one. Rennie bought catering on another thing, as examples. Rennie's picked people up and driven them out to spots. Those are examples of things, right? So that's where we were saying that until all of us see this as that, in a sense, then this is going to be relegated to us hoping that people are going to wake up and me showing up is just where this is at. I mean, Cujo, you know this. Cujo's on how many times? I'm not an online guy. Cujo's life is kind of spending that. I look to him as to something that I need to step up to. I'm trying my best to try and emulate the amount of work he puts into this.
But see, that's where it comes into, like, it's not the ones who are trying or the ones who can say the 3 things. It's the ones who can't that need to be questioned and pulled up. It's not the ones who are doing. It's not the ones who are doing stuff is the problem, because the ones who are doing, they're doing what they could do. I mean,
So fair enough, but I don't think it's an unfair question.
No, I'm just saying that question would be more geared toward the ones who aren't doing, who haven't done anything.
Yes, but hold on.
Because the ones who are doing something, they're doing something.
But let's qualify that within this realm right here. We're definitely not looking to put that question to people that have just come in here in the last day or two, or the last couple of weeks or something, right?
No, we're saying from first Juali Day people to now.
Fair enough.
You know what I mean?
Well,
Like
we can look at that list and
if
there's just you, me, and one other person from 10 years ago, right? When you think about some of that.
which again lets you know that it's the people. The people are the problem. Our people specifically. That's why I keep bringing up. That's why I keep bringing up other nations.
Remember, they said it took 4 people to build the pyramids, right? So, that's why I go home and I question myself as to what else I can do to keep getting this thing to get where it gets. Because you know what? Like Yasun said, we say tomorrow there's a plot of land and you get your right to travel. There'll be a lineup all the way down to Caledonia.
There might not be.
You and I both know there would be. Because from the perspective that you and I know there both would be, the issue is that what I'm talking about isn't in that way. But why
But from the perspective, like if we said that and we put that
there
out,
was $7 million tomorrow, if we said we got our land back, everyone who comes in to say remember nature said, if they said to you tomorrow to get your check, you got to be a Moor. Everyone's a Moor tomorrow. Everyone's a Moor tomorrow. They get up and say, hey, the only way you're getting your finance here is that you have to claim your nationality. Everyone's a Moor tomorrow.
Awful, because we can't get that fiat because it's unlawful money.
Oh, stop. As I said, the splitting of hair stuff is nonsense. We're living in this right now, in the world of the world. You know this. You're going to do your work right now, right? What are they paying you? Are they paying you spiritual dollars, or are they giving you money?
In the sense of like getting some finance, the finances are not at stake. That's what I'm thinking. You know?
Well, and I'm loving you for that, but we understand how application is met out, brother. You getting in the gap? Remember, were you there for the time when the conveyance and tank was running empty? Oh, don't worry, the Spirit's going to get us there. Remember that one with Kenta? We're in the vehicle, we're on the way to Ottawa in the empty tank, and I'm looking for the gas, and Kenta's saying, don't worry, the God's going to get us there. And we had this big, huge thing. I mean,
why is it like that, though? If they're to say tomorrow, I don't know who they, I'm going to use the word they. If they were to say tomorrow, in order for you to get your check, for them to sign your check and you get your check, you have to say you're more.
Mm-hmm.
Who's they? That's specifically their.
They is all the unawakened Moors, which is every person that you see saying they're black or Jamaican or whatever, is really a Moor, right?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they Moors? Anyone that you see up there who says he's black or Jamaican or Trini or whatever else, he's really
everyone's a Moor.
Well, yes, but we're talking about maybe.
But I get what you're saying.
And if they were to do that, then what exactly is going on?
No, the point that was being made was that it is where people's energy are. Right now, you want to go get a welfare check, you say you're John Smith and you get it. But I'm saying to you, if tomorrow they were to tell you that you need to claim your nationality, it's like when the prophet said that there's going to be a time when you're going to need 16 secretaries to sign the people up. That's what I'm talking about. Getting to that level, but it's not going to be them doing it. It's going to be something outside of them that's going to be getting them here. So and part of that could be even like, you know what? Let's say this: the whole COVID thing might have been an example of that. You saw how people were running in here to try and get their vaccine.
Yeah, but that's just like the thing you were talking about people seeking a benefit. And once they get their benefit, then that's it. They don't care about this after they get their
what happens after
their benefit.
Well,
like if the people are gonna be expecting something when they come onto this side, and then they get it, but they're not sticking to, they get it, but they're not sticking to the principles. They're not sticking to unity with each other. They're not sticking to whatever. They're just Moors to get their check. Then they're useless. Yeah, what are we doing with them?
I mean, as I said,
not doing nothing with them.
We can get off on. We can sort of finish this subject here. But every Chinese or every Manchurian or every Hindu that you see up there isn't an adherent to their nationality like that. They're out there gambling, they're out there smoking their dope, all out there doing stuff that probably wouldn't be an exactly right exact.
But they're still their nation though. They're not gonna say we're not.
So then that feeds into my point that just because we were saying that, because ultimately they're all Hindus or they're all Chinese because there is a check that's coming there, doesn't mean that they're following every part of the role that they should.
No, but they're following it more than our people follow some stuff.
Well, this is what I'm saying.
Like that, like we're saying, they're not
to get into this place where, as I said,
like we're not gonna find any.
I'm just looking to get us somewhere without having to compare on a level or contrast to anything that I'm looking at getting this to where it needs to get to.
We all do, but it's all the time.
Yeah, getting it to where it needs to get to isn't happening with just dues and with just five more is putting
That's what I said to you. So
putting
we're gonna have to do something else.
$1,000 in a
That's
pot.
how this all started. I said, we're gonna have to do something else.
Yeah, but
And then you told me that wasn't it. So that's what I'm getting back to.
no, but the something else is who knows what the something else is? Anybody? We don't.
Well, I think that we should be looking down that road, shouldn't we?
No, but looking down the road as far as
I don't know, bro. Just asking us questions, reflecting. I don't see us reflecting on that stuff a lot.
bro, we reflect on that every time we talk about what we're gonna do.
Yeah, you and I do.
Like
When we talk about getting the land and stuff, I say if we're to get the land, like you said, that's just land. Like you said, we're gonna have to do something with the land, and all of that takes finance too, which we don't have like that right now, at least. So.
For the land, you get like equipment and stuff like that. That's what we're running. So actually, how do you do that later?
that's the issue that you guys have right now. That we got 100 acres, but nobody has a tractor. Then what you doing with 100 acres? You just got it sitting there. Like you got it,
Hold on. But isn't that what I discussed too?
What's
Isn't
that?
what I said to you? That if they tomorrow were to say, here, Morris, you guys are indigenous, here's your 100 million. You said, oh, once you
That's
get
a whole different level.
Yeah, but because if
why? Because you're talking about money, right? Hold on.
No, because if regardless, if we have
Contradicting things.
because if we have
That's really what it is. It's gold and silver.
no, but regardless,
Everything else is
Here we go. We can't even agree on anything. So anyways, $100 million is nothing, right?
whatever we get, we could whatever we get it in. If they say here's a certain amount of finance, right? Then
If we don't have our plan, then just like this brother's talking about here, we're gonna be in the same boat. And that's why I said, even if we got some finance, if we don't have our plan, that money's being blown.
no, but why would the money be blown? Of course we're gonna have a plan. Like why would
planned out what our steps are?
but what are we planning if we don't have nothing to plan with? I know, like what do you mean planning?
Yes, you can.
When they say
Yes, you can.
If everybody said that there were more at the farm, we would all be on the field just doing what we're going to do, just putting in the work.
So now you're talking about certain cultural and things that have been ingrained in you, right? That's what you're talking about in terms of a collectiveness, right?
Yeah, because we all have the same goals. We know this is what we're doing, but because everybody's black, everybody's Jamaican, African.
Exactly, it's going nowhere.
Everybody has their different.
Well, hold on, but we can also see that, and as I said, let's end this.
We're about to close out soon.
There are lots of people that come together that are different nationals that work together and get ahead on stuff.
Yeah, but they're nationals. That's the difference. They're not. It's not niggers coming together to do some stuff.
I'm saying you'll have Canadians who might be Ukrainian, who might be
Right there. You just said.
I'm just saying. I'm just using the aspect that they don't all have to be of one.
No, they don't. But they're national though. Their mindset is they're a national persuasion.
Well, then
Our people aren't.
We're the only one that doesn't.
Our people aren't.
The only one that not.
Well, hold on. The Jamaicans are national?
No.
But the Ukrainians are national though.
Yeah,
Hold on. Ukrainians are national, but the Jamaicans not.
Jamaicans are national.
Oh, I see.
Jamaicans are Moors, right?
That don't mean wrong.
Jamaicans are Moors. They-
It doesn't even mean it like something that's pertaining to some type of land. You see, Ukraine means something related to land. Like, you've got nothing regarding Jamaica.
Right, just everybody worships under their own vine and fig tree but us. And then we want to unify with people who don't have a national mindset and want to know how come stuff falls apart or why it doesn't work or whatever. And then everybody else who's national, the stuff works. They know, you know what I mean? But we could only do so much with the numbers that we have. And we're doing the best we can with the numbers that we have based on the people being in this sleep state that they're at. Because like I said, if we talk to any other nationals, any other place in the world, none of them have 50 different things that they call themselves. We're the only ones that do that. Everybody else sticks to what their foremothers and forefathers were. You know?
or a calculator, whatever.
Just to get out of that alone is a big job to do. Get them out to that state of mind. Then start making a move there. These are the people, like you said, they are their nationality, they are a real nation, they belong to something. We are the only one now.
That's why
I know they'll say it's gonna take 100 years for my people even to know that.
to know that I was here.
And it's only 10 years now that we know we're here. We know. Then no,
Quote the right stuff. He never said that.
huh?
He never said that. So quote the right stuff if you're gonna quote him. He said 50 years after I'm gone, you might not know that I'm here. That's what he said. And then 50 years after that is what he said. So it had nothing to do with 100 years.
Yeah, well, 50 and 50 is 100. What do you mean?
It was the same. Bro, you want me to get the quote?
Regardless of what
Okay,
the
50
Okay, I'm
years.
gonna say regardless of what
Even
he
if-
said,
50 years.
we don't know life, we don't know
content.
nothing. We don't know nothing he said besides what was in the text. Like
50 years.
even if we say 20 years,
Yeah, we only have 10 now.
All right, well, let's
you
see.
still got time.
We're here.
How many years has it been since he passed?
Just means we got work to do, that's all.
That's all
Ain't
he's
nothing.
getting at.
Just means we got work to do.
Of course.
You know? It's not gonna be done overnight. And it's not gonna be done with 5 people.
No.
You know? But 5 people are gonna do the best they can do.
I never heard that thing about you said 4 people built the pyramid. I never heard about that before. But that's how it is. Then. That's how I look at this. Those 4 people just need to build and be the best that they could be. But maybe those 4 people aren't, in tune as they should be.
All the prophets will allow them to have a big gathering right away, right? Small.
Islam, Morris. Great bill today, as usual. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
My salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
By day.
His holy prophet.
His holy prophet.
Noble Ali. Islam. Islam, Morris.
Do you want to come and check this thing out here?